Hey everyone, guess what? We do not have ugly swag. We have spaced out radio gear that you're going to want to wear. Why? Because no one wants to wear ugly clothing. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com and go shopping today. You'll be glad you did. And it's a great way to support our show. Once you get your gear, send us a picture of you rocking out in your SOR swag. spacedoutradio.com, shop there today, and make yourself look good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. It's going to be an awesome show tonight. We got our guest back for the second time, Reed Summers. Great conversation last time, if you recall. I know all of you said that in the chat and in the comment section, and it's going to be great. I'm glad it's happening right now in a moment where so much is happening within ufology, and we kicked off the new year. So happy new year to everybody out there. Hope everything is going great, as this is the first show of the new year. So awesome. Can't wait to jump into this. It's going to be awesome. Great time tonight. Let me go ahead and look into the chat and see who has come in first. We have Fast Hemi jumping in with the gold, saying looking forward to the show. Me as well, Fast Hemi. We got Tamar Man with the silver saying, is this that Woo place? Yeah, it is. It is. Technically, it is coming in with that silver. And we got Race Fan coming on in with that bronze saying, good evening, Ron. Appreciate you showing up here tonight. Race Fan. And who else do we have? We have Kitty Catty Whack. Thanks for coming in, Kitty Catty Whack. Deidre C in the building. Hey, Deidre C. Looking forward to the show. As am I. Let's get into it here in just a moment. UFO Tim James saying, howdy all, let's get this show rolling. That's what I'm talking about. I love that energy. We're going to keep that going tonight. Area 51 sighting saying, he's saying hi from California, LOL. Don't know what that means. I am in California, but thanks for coming in, Area 51. Thanks for showing up here. Frankie B is here saying good evening. Good evening, Frankie B. Thanks for coming on in. Mel WD40 getting us lubed up for the show. As always, appreciate you showing on up, Mel WD40. We appreciate your support. Roger Murray as well. No knowledge for us tonight, huh, Roger Murray? Maybe we'll get something here later. What else do we have showing up here? We have Kathy Evans saying hi, appreciate it. Donnie C saying, only 20 minutes. Oh, okay, yeah, you were here early, and we appreciate that. Thanks for showing on up here tonight. Who else do we have here? If we can get to the end of the list, maybe, potentially, Miss Catherine Jones. Good evening, folks, from the East Coast. Okay, Miss Catherine Jones, thanks for coming in. Lars Jansen saying good morning, all. So you can imagine Lars Jansen is somewhere else in the world. Thank you for coming in, Lars, and supporting the show. JSCO77 is here. Hi, JSCO77. Appreciate you showing on up. And Karen in the Woo Train. Hey, Robin, SOR. Hey, Karen. Appreciate you coming on in here tonight. Can I get there? I'm almost there. Let's see. Kurt M. All right, Kurt M. Appreciate you showing on up. And Riff Nation in the building. Hey, Riff Nation, thanks for coming in. Scott Rosen as well. Cody Eiler. Let's see. Jay Mufon, Section State Director. Love it. All right, I'm getting the podcast side started because we're about to start the radio here in just a moment. All right, welcome to Spaced Out Radio. We're jumping right into the radio right now, looks like. Here we go. Greetings, space travelers. Welcome home. You just tuned your dial to Spaced Out Radio, the only place where you can own the night. I'm your host, Mr. Rob G. And tonight we are broadcasting to you on our terrestrial affiliates across North America, plus digitally on digital platforms all around the globe. You can access our archives for absolutely free. YouTube.com/@SpacedOutRadio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us, X, Instagram, @SpacedOutRadio and @SpacedOutRadio Show. Our website is SpacedOutRadio.com, where the options are endless. You can stay up to date with the SOR Newswire. You can get yourself some official Spaced Out swag. Plus, you can rock out to the man you hear right there, Ron Bummelfitall, and so much more. We're going to have an awesome show tonight. We have Reed Summers, podcast host, ufologist, really good guy, really deep thinker. Can't wait to get in that conversation for hours 1 and 2. Then we have Steve Stockton coming in hour 3 with Tales Untold, Missing Person Mysteries, along with Drew Banke with the After Hours wrap up. We're getting ready to jump right on into the show. No delay tonight. Conversations are about to happen, and I'm so glad that you guys are here with us for the first show of the new year. It's going to be a power show, and we're going to go ahead and bring in our guest right now, the man with the new podcast, Emergent, Reed Summers. Reed, hi, how are you? Oh, you're muted there.
There we go. Yep. Hi, everyone. Good to be with you. Good to see you, Rob.
Man, I'm so glad that you're back. And just to preface, we were going to have you about a month ago, but the stars aligned in a way where we had to set it up a month later, which actually was perfect for me because of what was going on. And I really wanted that whole situation to settle itself before we sat down and tried to analyze it. So it kind of worked out for the best, and being the first show of the new year. So just so happy to go ahead and be able to talk to you about this. It's like therapy for me, right? It's like you're my therapist, and I get to kind of hash this out with you. So it's going to be awesome. I do want to point out that Reed has a brand new awesome podcast called Emergent. Since the last time we talked to you, started this. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, you need to go on over and subscribe. Top-notch, top-level quality content over there. I saw you interview Richard Dolan recently, and just it's really, I said this before the show to you, but I really feel like, your position and your state of thinking is something that needs to have a stage to be presented and have a consistent place to voice itself. So glad that you're doing that, and I'm a fan of the show, so I just want to start there.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of folks encourage me to get out there and create a platform for this kind of conversation to happen every 2 weeks. So I'm on episode 7 this coming Friday. I've got Rich Hoffman, co-founder of SCU, and Matthew Shadegas, University of Albany, talking about the current state of UAP science and research as we go into the new year. So lots of great conversations coming. Definitely encourage people to get over there. It's live. We take your questions live. We go where we need to go in the conversation. There are no go zones. So
that's right. That's what I love. That's what I love about it, Reed. And, some of the things we were really getting to know each other last time and kind of went over some of the basics and what got you into this. So there were some things that you said during the last show that kind of, at this point stood out to me based on everything that's happened. So starting out, your mother and father, you had mentioned, were pretty much involved and engaged in this topic. And your mother had more of a spiritual nature. And you were drawn away from doing work overseas in order to kind of, what you stated is for a UFO calling. And it was just something that stood out to me because on the show, we talk a lot about synchronicities, and I've watched, and Drew Banky can attest to this, things that have manifested themselves for reasons. And it kind of, and even with the rescheduling that we did, that almost also seemed to be one of those synchronicities. One of the things that I asked you was which sightings you would point to, like beyond a doubt, if you were to tell someone, hey, this is a sighting, this is a solid case. You pointed out Roswell and the Phoenix Lights. Now we have these UFO drones. Since then, is this the new Phoenix Lights? Like, what is your thought process on the drones? How did you approach it?
Yeah, wow. Well, I've been a little bit on the sidelines due to some other family and work related, needs that kind of prevailed in the months of November, December. So I've just been watching this flow of reports, sightings, video, photos. I'm the media side, in terms of like literal, like graphical evidence, has been a little troubling to me, because I have seen some fake videos rolling around, and it's just really hard to verify the authenticity and the location, the reporting person, even the country of origin of some of this media. So I'm kind of watching. I'm still in watching mode. Something's for sure going on, and we can talk about both sides of the fence line in terms of scenario. Is it us or is it them? And then if it's more us than them, so which of us? Is it USG? Is it foreign adversary? Is it defense industry? I think we can rule out the hobbyist, the mass delusion, the birds, whatever's been used to kind of obfuscate this. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is a UAP component to what we're seeing, because again, though I'm not in a position to say this is UFO, UAP, or let alone NHI, I do understand that the NHI, that there is a non-human intelligence operating in the world, and operating at a very high pitch, tens of thousands of sightings per year globally, in the air, in the water, reported by credible people for many decades. So this speaks to a very pervasive form of activity by these craft, whatever their origin. So I know that that's happening, and now this is happening. Now, is that happening in a greater way? Is NHI trying to force a catastrophic disclosure? Are they trying to drive a wedge between citizen and government, knowing that government is not intending to disclose, at least not yet? And so with that said, what can they do? They throw up some orbs in a way that would create something of a mass sighting, and then does that force the government or defense sector to throw up their drones to obfuscate and create a smokescreen in effect? So there are these layers of actors and intent, and I do understand that there is tension between the NHI reality and the official government realities of the world. So that's come to my attention pretty clearly. So, are the NHI intending something, and government is generating a drone controversy to obfuscate it? Is NHI using catastrophic disclosure as either carrot or stick, in some sense, to cow government in some form of agreement or contested arrangement that might be long running or newly formed? I think there are some really strange elements to this in terms of timing. Right after the UFO hearings in Congress, right after the US election, right before the inauguration, and at a time of escalation regarding nuclear threats and posturing between Russia and NATO. So there's a lot there that could be happening, and I'm happy to dive into scenarios further. But I'm sitting on the sidelines, letting the researchers and the scientists kind of come to conclusions regarding the morphologies of the craft being seen, their flight characteristics. Do those match what's been reported over many years in the UFO phenomenon or not? And how might we begin to parse this, because it may not be one thing, one source.
Yeah, and there's a lot there, and obviously this hit a fever pitch right before the holiday, and it seemed like everyone disconnected from it. A lot of people were worn out on the subject, on the topic, and I kind of want to get into that too, because the theory that you just ran there with potentially it being a little bit of both. That's kind of where I fell with it. And I'm kind of proud. I want to start here with, as far as others in ufology, I will say that when this situation came up, most people took it slow, didn't jump in and say aliens initially. Everyone thought man-made prosaic explanation for what these are. And in a lot of cases, what we saw definitely looked like some sort of physical craft. So, but we did see anomalous things in there as well. And then you had reports of these things doing things that normal drones you wouldn't think could do. So I know I went down a path. I've done multiple shows on the drone situation, as a lot of people did, but I kind of broke it down and pointed to why it didn't appear to be adversarial, then why it didn't appear to be hobbyist or private entity, and then also why it just didn't make sense that it would be some sort of black project or some. I've never seen a time, and Jim Goodall is a good friend of the show, where he's actually spent a big part of his life looking into black projects, and there's never really been a time historically where black projects have been put on center stage for the world to see for this extended period of time. Like, what else do you end up being left with when you go down a logical thought path when we're talking about this?
I mean, the way this is unfolding, it looks like a mass display intended to shape public perception. Now, people might call it a psychological operation by the government, and I could see a scenario in that sense of create a crisis, manufacture an event, and then allow government to respond to that, to whatever end, to either to justify defense spending, possibly to justify disclosure. I mean, if this is happening in our skies, maybe we need to bring UAS into the UAP disclosure conversation. Maybe UAS is the new avenue to get talking about UAP. I don't know if that's exactly what's going on, but there also could be an attempt to create a situation that looks like UFOs, get the whole UFO crowd churning on it and mentally undisciplined, sharing the wrong stuff, saying it's alien when they don't really know if it's alien. And then it comes out as truly prosaic, and it discredits the entire UFO field and all the arguments for ufology. And this is another under the carpet moment, which there have been many of. So I think I commend you for that. Caution. I know a lot of people I'm talking to are advising caution in that sense and not jumping to conclusions. I will introduce, though, because I don't hear it talked about very much. There is a scenario, and I'm not saying I know this to be happening, because I don't, but it is a scenario to consider, the NHI side, of a double psyop. I know everyone's really concerned about a government fake alien invasion, right? Project Bluebeam, I think that's colloquially called. I mean, there could be something of a double psyop going on, which is, can that be faked by non-government actors? And can a crisis be manufactured that basically undermines public belief in government, trust in government, such that disclosure, if it ever happens authentically, wouldn't even be trusted? I have this disclosure equation. Disclosure equals evidence, evidence times source times trust. And so if the source is US government, if the evidence is photographic or testimonial, if it's just a government official saying this is happening, and trust is zero, well, disclosure is zero. So there are elements that do not want this to be brought out to the public, and there are elements that do, evidently. And so if disclosure is inching towards a reality, if Trump, is going to be the disclosure president, as it's being said, which he has indicated an intent to open this up, along with the JFK files and other truths that have been long hidden from the public, to take on the deep state in a very kinetic way. If that is the intention of the incoming administration, and yet the ability to disclose now is not really present. It needs to be built up towards. I could imagine a preemptive strike, in essence, a preemptive form of manufacturing a forced crisis, such that the citizenry don't trust their government anymore. So when disclosure does come, it's believed by 30% or less of the population, and therefore it's effectively nullified as an event. So lots of scenarios on both sides of the fence.
Do you think there's a scenario where, because if that ends up being the case, which I could totally see that being the case, that one of these other countries jumps the gun? They see, okay, U.S. potentially is about to disclose this. Let's get ahead of that and let's do it ourselves. I think potentially they would at least think about that. What do you think about that?
I've come across information that I find convincing that China at least is considering disclosing this, and there are countries angling on primacy in the acquisition not only of UAP technologies but also science, and also the discourse around reverse engineered technologies and science and technology of non-Earth origin. So it's in the testimony of Lou Elizondo, Dave Grush, and Carl Nell that there is a secret arms race for technologies of non-Earth origin. And if that is true, and if these technologies allow certain performative capabilities, such that we might be seeing in this drone situation over New Jersey and the Northeast and other American U.S. Military facilities in Europe, if some of that technology is enabling behavior that is a massive threat to national security, then we might start to make a logical assumption that secret arms race for these technologies is driving geopolitical affairs and possibly the strategic moves of certain world leaders. If conflict is on the near horizon, which many do believe, I think I've read many times, most analysts believe 2027 is the year for the war with China over Taiwan. That's a mainstream opinion among defense analysts. And by the way, Taiwan is, the world's foremost provider of super advanced semiconductors, right? So it's technology. And so, but if technology of non-Earth origin is already under the skin of global affairs and has been for over possibly 60 years, since 1947 and beyond, how is that distorting the playing field and driving certain actors to do things they otherwise wouldn't? There are other deeper aspects to that, such as the possibility of some form of social engineering by NHI or influence of government officials, even people in mainstream religious settings, religious leadership. I'm hearing rumblings that there are forms of very bizarre, what seems like neurological influence being cast on certain leaders, even in that field of human society. So we don't know the extent of the penetration into our world by this force that is non-human. They're operating covertly, long-standing secrecy in a state of non-disclosure. And not enough people are questioning their intent. Like, why are they here? What are they effectively doing? What is their program of engagement? We have indications that suggest that the penetration is very deep. The non-consensual contact happening with people who report abductions, for example, suggests this is not just a remote surveillance or a science project where they just need to pluck a few humans and extract a little bit of DNA and move on. This is a programmatic attempt to influence or intervene in the human journey in some way. And so I think we need to begin probing at that enigma, asking the right questions. And I don't doubt that there will be many misdirection plays and psychological operations and attempts to affect public perception of this as it rolls out in either direction. So I think caution is warranted, and that's the analytical approach, the logical approach, I think is really the one to take as a great starting point for people.
Yeah, and the psychological impact, the psychological play, I think, by the government is just going a month and just not having an answer, just saying every single night, we don't know what they are, we don't know, but they're not a threat. And in this period, it's kind of troubling because, yes, you want to sit back and vet what's going on. You want to make sure that you've looked down, checked all the boxes. But I've noticed in this moment that the attention span for Americans, or just really human beings, period, is
Right.
pretty short when it comes to it, because we still didn't get an answer by the holidays. However, everyone was ready to go ahead and give it up and just move on to the next thing. Where you know, I also disconnected from it because I'm like, we need a break from it. But I come back to it. I'm like, okay, after the new year, let me look back at it and see if it's still going on, which it actually is still going on. But
Yeah.
everyone else has moved on. So it's almost like the general public being, not grasping the moment necessarily, when, if these are anomalous, or there's an anomalous portion to this and it's right in our face, we're kind of just like, yeah, and moving on. Like, what do you think about that? I mean, because it almost seems like if we did have a Phoenix Lights situation, we may just write it off.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, I anchor into this strong indication that I have that the forthcoming administration intends to take on the elements that have kept this secret and to disclose some amount to the public. And I hope it's both honest and complete enough to reflect a picture that would be instructive for the public to have. I'm not convinced that will take place, but I think there are indications that this administration intends to play hardball. And so how do you trip up the forthcoming administration such that their attempts to do so, which might be empowered at this moment, actually, they might be effective. They might actually be able to do it. They might be able to effectively disclose this to the global populace. How do you undermine that? Well, you could manufacture something that looks anomalous, get the public inured to it, test the waters, see what public reactions are. You can, of course, throw up more prosaic looking vehicles at any time, right? Helicopters and the like, quadcopters to really, okay, they can diffuse this thing fast by saying, oh, it actually was us. Here's the craft we were using. Yes, we do have very large drones that we've been developing in secret for military purposes, or, it was around nuclear sniffing incident or something like that. So it's easy to diffuse. It's also easy to make more anomalous, right? Presuming certain elements have craft of phenomenal performative abilities due to reverse engineering efforts, they can throw up more of those possible triangles and black budget craft and make it look more anomalous. You can dial it up or dial it down. You can numb the populace to this event and to events that would otherwise create that strong, forceful ripple that effectively breaks down the defense apparatus, right? So if nothing was happening, if it's all quiet, 737s and Airbuses in the sky, and then bam, right? There's an NHI driven event, or there's which is in the sense of mass catastrophic disclosure, or there's an authentic government disclosure event. In that relative silence, that would be a very loud sound that would wake up a lot of people. But in a relative, brash, fray where there's just everything going on and too much, yeah, maybe people don't respond in the same way. And maybe, again, I think this relationship between citizen and government and governing bodies and government employees, public servants, the trust factor in that relationship is key. And I think all parties know that. All parties that don't want disclosure know that trust is essential for disclosure to effectively break this open. How do you undermine trust? Many ways to undermine trust. And trust is, you could say, at an all-time low. This event is aiding that. So again, in my work, I instead of trying to make a lot of speculative statements about, what NHI, what ETs, what planets of origin, people get way into that, what types of being, I kind of look more at outcomes and implications for human interests. And so I personally know that disclosure is what the human species needs and deserves. And that is, for many reasons.
Yeah, we're going to hold right there, Reed, as we go ahead and get ready to jump into our first break of the night. Awesome conversation. Reed Summers is back with us here as we get ready to come back from this break. You guys don't go anywhere, right here. Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show. We'll see you in a few minutes. right? We are clear. We got about 5 minutes, so if you need to do anything, Reed, you have some time here. And Bones Jones, thanks for coming on in. I see you showing up here. Didn't get to say hi. Just Ryan from NOLA. Appreciate you coming in. Sounds like something you need to crack the equation of pi to understand. I hear you. Let me see. Resonant. I see you here. Thanks for coming in, Resonant. Also, Operation Shutdown. Good show tonight, Mr. Rob G. Appreciate you, Operation Shutdown. Reed is a really cool guy to talk to, especially on this. He's very knowledgeable, and I love his point of view. Magneticus Attractus. Soon the Earth will be flat again, and the sun will revolve around the Earth. Yeah, not going to happen. But thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you, Damian Wyatt. There's no way possibly that it's Chinese drones. These are external sources, military, industrial complex, rogue group staging events. If it was far from adversary, they'd be blown clear out the sky. Yeah, I mean, it's a few ways to go about that. You know, like I said, going down a checklist. I don't see why they would put black projects on the center stage if they're supposed to be secret, right? With satellites that can see those things and follow them from origin to destination very easily, and it just is very unlikely. And then couple that with no answers, you know, you kind of want to cross it out, but you can't completely, right? Can't completely do it. Let's see. Bones Jones, Area 51. Let's see. Richard Minnick. What trust these days? Got you. Understood. Let's see. Resonant says, I have seen them at close range. I would love to know what you saw. I just hate that. That's the other thing, not being out in that area. I would love to be out there. So I could just do some research. You know, I keep forgetting the guy, the podcaster, who actually went out there and chartered a boat out onto the ocean, and they were seeing these things coming in from way out. Joe Rogan goes a little further to say these things were coming in from what he's heard, at least 50 miles off the coast, which is insane. Because if you're on a boat 50 miles away from the coast, you can't even see land. So just so many questions there still. But we got, what is it? This is the 4th of January. So we got about 2 weeks until inauguration and hopefully some movement. We'll see. Ciela Azul, thanks for coming in. Let's see. Resonant, you keep overlooking the obvious. Why are the aliens quiet if they want to disclose, and why don't have to show up everywhere? They kind of did. I mean, I don't know if you consider the other things around the world that people are seeing, because obviously UFOs and anomalous sightings have happened for thousands of years. So they've never gone anywhere. The sightings, you know, it may be just 2 different things here. The drone situation, and then over, you know, around the world globally, just the normal anomalous stuff that we always see. So really hard to say.
Well, I think it's an alarming fact that the NHI, or the aliens, you might say, don't want disclosure, at least not yet. But when they would, why would they want it then and not now, not 50 years ago? So, you know, they're part of the secrecy as well, and there is a dual secrecy, I would argue.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you about that here, because, you know, I think there's getting into the spiritual component of that, because as human beings, we sense things and we pick up feelings that are unspoken. You don't know why you get the feeling, and I'm going to ask you if you felt anything behind this. Like, was there any unspoken thing that kind of touched you and said there may be something to this?
In recent times, Rob, or overall general?
Just in this current situation. We got about 30 seconds before we come back here. All right, 15 seconds. Man, I'm getting sick, man. This is crazy. I hate this time of year. Oh,
That was my December. That's partly why I was not as attentive as I could have been, because it was a rough one.
all right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show. Coming back with our guest here, Reed Summers, getting right back into awesome conversation. If you missed any of what we talked about, you can always hop in the archive, which is absolutely free. YouTube.com/at Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button as we go ahead and jump right back into the conversation and just kind of just going a little bit further into the current wave of whatever this is. I don't even like to call them drones because I think that is a catch-all word that is describing a lot of different things that may be taking place. But I did want to know because, you did mention in our first conversation that your mother was more on the spiritual side of this, and being that you are her child, had you picked up on anything? Like, was there anything about the current wave of things that are happening that has spiritually touched you?
Oh, wow. Yes. Well, first off, I'm a major spiritual practitioner myself, and have been since around the age of 16. Started meditating actually at the age of more like 12. And I became a meditator at various points for extensive sessions. So like I would meditate up to even like 2-3 hours a day at one point, which amplified my perception phenomenally and my productivity as a human being. Okay. So with that, I also teach a practice called the Way of Knowledge. So I teach on the side a way for individuals to access what I would feel is their greater mental and spiritual intelligence that would allow perception at a deeper and more nonlinear way. So that aside, this question is not left field for me at all. In the last 12 months, I have, most certainly felt this event moving in the world. I know it is having much more of an impact on the events of the world than we can account for. So I can sense its gravity. It's like, we know dark matter is there because we measure the gravitational signature of space, and the mass present in that space does not account for the gravitational signature. It's like, I know this is big and it's moving. And the last 8 weeks or so have been stirring me pretty significantly. And I think we're in for quite the year, quite the 2 years. And after 2026 and 2027, man, this could get strange. It could get alarming. I don't rule out the even that disclosure is powerful enough to start a small or even mid-scale conflict, physical conflict in the world. So I think it's that big. It's a secret that deep.
Yeah, and you bringing that part up. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely repercussions the disclosure brings, and we've seen some of that recently. If you attribute any of what's happened recently to what the UFO flap or whatever we're going to call it, but the whole Trump Tower situation where the guy's manifesto kind of ties back to relating to the topic, and it's like, okay, will this bringing in this sort of moment, cause others to turn in this way? And now we have all these different landmines that we have to deal with as society. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been following it. It's pretty wild. It's pretty out there, and there will be more of these to come, I suspect. I mean, when this breaks out into the mainstream, I don't know. And that's not really my concern. My concern is I think certain people are being activated at the level of purpose, calling, relationship to the world and to this issue. And the need is to respond to that. Like, why are we even here? It's late at night. We could all be asleep. We could all be watching, tonight's NBA game or something. We're here because this has to do with us in some deeper way. There's more than a desire or an interest. There's a need to know. And there's a will to know. There's a will to dig in and stare at Reddit or UFO Twitter for 2 hours a day or however long folks do. Like we're hunting for what? and to what end? It's a question I would actually ask everyone, and it's different for everyone. My UFO calling happened about a year ago, actually, December of 23. I had recently come back from a trip to Ukraine, and I was feeling the world and seeing, the grinding nature of geopolitical affairs and how, human beings are the grist for this mill of conflict and, hegemonic competition and competing worldviews, political aims. And yet I could feel there was a deeper layer to this, and that it was moving. And basically my calling, I could almost sum it up in a few words. The world needed me, and it needed me to say what I knew in the way that I would say it. And that's what I've been trying to do for 12 months ever since. I left my career in science broadcasting, to do this partly. And here I am 12 months later. And I think, here we all are 12 months later. So, I would counsel folks to not get too woven up in the controversies, the dramas, the personalities of this field, and the events of the day even. Look for the indications, piece together the bigger picture, and keep your eye on the NHI. That is the center of the controversy in my view, and stay on the side of humanity. And there's slippery slopes on both sides of that. It's somewhat of a narrow walk because a lot of folks do not have much hope for humanity. And they also slip into this hopefulness around NHI being, whatever, advanced, ethical, technological and spiritual, which don't tend to go together very well. And these major cognitive kind of barriers start to rise up that prevent people from really logically thinking through this and staying connected to their instinct. That's one of these 8 capabilities that I teach people to engage with in this phenomenon. Instinct. We are instinctual beings. We're connected to this Earth planetary system. This Earth planetary system is experiencing a visitation by a non-Earth-based life form, I would argue. And it is a distinct visitation in the 20th century, probably due to the activities of humanity. We can get into that later, but what is the instinctual read on this? It's a question for folks. I have mine, you have yours, and I talk to people all the time in the public about this, like right off the street, which is one of my, you could say hobbies, but it's actually kind of my work or my profession is I want to talk to people out there who don't know anything about this and engage their minds. To me, that's disclosure. I am effectively disclosing this, but I am disclosing it in a way that engages them instead of just impresses information on them. They have no way to bind to that information, to engage it, to intake it. And so I like to talk to people from the ground level up, just strike up conversations, ask them, what if this was happening? What if this was behind the drone thing? What do you think that would mean? Why would they be here? What brought them here? How should we respond? And it's amazing how much instinct and logic, and you could say common sense, kind of like the baby version of logic or the gut level of logic, just comes out of people who know nothing about this subject, and they start sounding a lot more intelligent than a lot of people who have been staring at this for way too long.
That's why you're awesome, Reed, and that's exactly why I couldn't wait for you to come back, because all those key words, common sense, logic, instinct, all those are words that I use all the time on this show to try to explain it, and you just did it so well there. And that's kind of what I was leaning into when I was talking about the spiritual connection to what's going on, because even myself, I don't look at the experiences I've had as anything ultra special. They happened, but I'm still at a point where I haven't realized where my spiritual connection is to this. But I brought that up because, and I think maybe it's more of an instinct or just one of those senses that we have, where as this situation, from when it started, it's like, drones, it's just drones. And then we get further and further into it. It's like, okay, well, they don't know what they are. And okay, if it was theirs, why would they leave it up for so long? Okay, wouldn't they have just ended it by now and made their point? And then you're kind of going down this path to where one day it gets to you get that feeling that sinks into you that there's probably more to this, and it's that unspoken thing. And I think that's kind of where the conversation is at. Now, go ahead.
No, I've talked to a lot of people recently, and man, they're getting into this and they know they need to. And that knowing, that like base level certainty, it's not full of like justification or reasoning or opinion. It's like, I need to be looking at this. I have talked to so many people who have this base level knowing. And I think that is the spiritual mind speaking in the way that it speaks, not only in words, or not always in words, but also in sudden impulses to do something that's against your even your logical self-interest. I mean, I have I have experienced a lot of ridicule in my life due to my association to this topic. And I know a lot of other people have too. Why do we do it then? The rewards are not there and the costs are. And
Yeah.
I think there's a basic level of intuitive knowing that, this has to do with us. It's a problem with our name on it. Maybe it has to do with our deeper nature. Maybe we're not entirely human. Our journey across lifetimes, if you hold that, reincarnation, or that our soul is transiting many lives, maybe it's not specifically human only. Maybe it's ecosystemic. There's an ecosystem of life, right? And why would it be strange for our soul to appear here and then there and then here? We're so human fixated and bounded by our seeming isolation in the universe, when we may be vastly woven in, even at the spiritual level. And I think part of the power of this event, if I may, because I think about this, kind of the theological implications of this, is that, we begin to not only find ourselves not the center of God's plan, but we find ourselves being impelled, you could say, by some sort of divine impulse or cosmic consciousness, what have you, to engage with the other 99.99999% of what was created and what exists. And this is part of the unification plan of a possible higher power. This is our spiritual destiny. And the impedance, the obstacle, the throwing up of walls, that basically it's like when an animal is in its natural environment, it wants to migrate. When you throw up a wall and prevent migration, these animals cannot reproduce. At times they suffer tremendous psychological effects, right? And so, like, are we in effect a life form that wants to migrate or move into a larger arena of association and interaction, and we're being stopped from doing so, and that activates some part of us that almost makes us wild and crazy around this issue, like a caged animal. And I hear that from people as well. But I think this is our true species direction, evolutionarily. I think it's also our spiritual direction. I think we need to. That's the big picture. The immediate picture is we're encountering certain physical entities who I believe are biological and of non-Earth origin. Now, we still have to deal with them at their physicality. Like people say, well, aren't they interdimensional? Or maybe they're from across space-time. Well, are you interdimensional? Do you have a divine nature? Because if you do, you're interdimensional too. But I still have to deal with you at the level of our physical engagement. And so I think there could be confusion of levels of reality here that just spin us into circles. And there's a way to move through that, I think.
Wow, that's awesome, man. I love how you put that. I mean, you have the 99% that's out there in the unification of life, just period, in general. And our potential isn't being realized, being stuck here and not knowing or connecting with what's out there. That's awesome. And you see an example of that. And this is one thing I said about the whole thing. I was 80-20, 80% maybe anomalous stuff going on, 20%, still some man-made portion to this. But the beautiful thing about this moment was that I saw a lot of people who were genuinely in a panic state, who had never considered UFOs as a thing at all. And farthest thing from their mind, but their awareness was activated. One of their senses, their human senses, was triggered in this moment. And now forever, I'm sure for them, they will always look up and question what they see in the sky. So I thought that was a win. Yeah. And then those are the people that you're talking about needing to reach out to. And we kind of really got a crutch in this moment based, as far as reaching out to those other people. So they kind of expedited the process. Even if these are just all man-made at the end of the day, we still at least got that on a human level, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Right. Yeah, it's making first-hand witnesses of a lot of people, potentially. Now, maybe they reason that out as this is deep state or black budget, et cetera. But that's not all of what we're seeing. We're seeing some pretty phenomenal craft capabilities. So yeah, it's creating the opening for a conversation. I just hope it's not a honey trap, right? Where, we're drawn in, this is the grand moment, this is the great big reveal, and then, haha, joke's on you, it's revealed as phenomenally prosaic. I think we have to just be a little cautious and, tread careful.
I agree.
But
I agree.
this is a long. These drone anomalous vehicle activity, whatever you want to call them. I mean, they're going back to Langley about a year ago. The NORAD and other U.S. air bases in Colorado, where I'm located. I mean, this is a long-standing reality. So you can always associate it back to the history of this activity around nuclear sites, for example. And when I do that, when I say, I have this conversation, yeah, you heard about the drone thing, yeah. What do you think? Yeah, they say what they think. And I'll talk. This has been going on for a long time. And did you know that some of the craft are capable of transiting airspace at 44,000 miles an hour in some cases, or going underwater at hundreds of knots, far faster than any underwater vehicle we have, or that they are a football field size, both underwater in some cases as reported and in the air. It's like people start to expand, like, really? Wow. And maybe that's the little crack that opens up the new paradigm for them, where they begin to question their former one and begin to embrace a new one.
Yeah, and I think also what happened in this moment is because it has gone on so long and it's continuing to go on, you're finding those new people who are looking up, and then they're like, wow, okay, that's something strange. But then they're also learning in the moment that you could literally be looking at Venus, or you could be looking at a plane, or you could be. So they're getting that crash course to where they're bumping their head, and then now they're able to still experience what's going on and kind of be more selective in the approach of what it is that they are processing when they look at the things. So like, okay, flight tracker, let me check that first. Okay, star map, sky map, let me check that first. Which is, I think, another awesome thing that is happening in this moment for us in ufology, because there are some people who are just believers who just believe to believe, and they're automatically saying this is 100% UFOs. I would never stand on that hill, but I think everybody's learning in this moment.
I will say I think this is a moment for UAP citizen tracking and detection. I'm passionate about that project. There are companies coming into being that are trying to put the tools in citizens' hands to actually create their own multi-sensor detection ability and data collection, sourcing that can't be fungible by state actors or other actors. Mitch Randall, Project Skywatch, the Bob Tracker, Sky 360, the Galileo Project, UAPX is doing stuff on this. So I'm hoping in the next year that this drone crisis impels some sense of need and necessity to create public access tools to report anomalous vehicle activity to a central database that can be used both for research, but also to corroborate claims, right? I mean, the government says, oh, yes, there were drones over the state of whatever, and this is what they were doing, and it was limited, and yet over here, we've got multi-sensor data, right? Infrared, radar, visual optical, firsthand witness, all corroborating each other, saying, actually, there was a lot more vehicles than you say. They were going a lot faster than you said they were. They were going into the water. There was a transmedium capability. So I think we're at that point where we have to take some matters into our own hands here. And the tools are there. So I encourage people to support those initiatives.
And a lot of the things that I've always said would help this process, and things that we need are like the influencers out there who have these large audiences to be able to talk about this subject to people. And I saw a lot of influencers who never speak about the subject, who talk about something totally different sort of topics, and they embrace this subject. So they got to speak this to their audience. And it was just like that awesome moment. It's like, okay, everyone in this moment is engaged in figuring out what these things are, whether they're man-made or not. They're taking a moment to step back and come together to figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we need. And if you look at the differences, because we just had the UFO hearing in November, and did you notice a difference in how quickly they engaged on the drone situation? And it seemed to me like the panic state caused them to kind of set up a hearing immediately, and it seemed like they were more engaged in figuring it out than they were a month ago when we're having these hearings. Like, did you see a difference there?
You mean right after the UFO hearing in Congress, after that, they were more engaged in leaping on the drone situation?
Yeah, when they saw these emergency hearings.
Right. There was classified hearings.
Yeah.
Yep. Arrow got involved. Yes. I don't know if the UFO hearing itself precipitated that, or if it created kind of like a public forum for discussion of these topics. Like it created a space, and then the UAP event, the drone situation kind of filled the space that had been created. Possible. I don't quite know who's leaping on what, though. I mean, I think there are factions within the government that have multiple different agendas, competing agendas. I think the three-letter agencies they have their own competing agendas around this issue. So I'm not quite sure who's leaping on what. So I'll be curious to see. It's almost like in 6 months, let's look at net effect. What was net effect of this drone situation, assuming it stops, which it might not. If it does, if this tapers off in February, let's reflect. Did this engage more people in the UFO conversation, or did it suppress the conversation or discredit it? Right? Did it enable the new administration to undertake credible, transparent action, disclosure, or did it actually trip them up? Right? And so I think by his fruits you shall know him. It's like let's see how these fruits manifest and what they grow towards. It's hard in the the melee to figure out quite who's throwing the punches.
Yeah, it just, everything has been a positive for me as far as all the things we just talked about there. It was just the only thing that I really didn't feel good about was how quickly a lot of people were willing to just move on from the situation because the drones weren't flying over their home. I'm like, okay, it's still important because we have something unknown, and these people are going to sleep every single night with SUV sized things flying over the house. Now, if it was you, then you wouldn't take the approach to want to move on from the topic. You'd still want to figure it out. So it's like, I'm not being affected, so I'm not going to pay attention. That element I really didn't like.
I got contacted by somebody who came out his back door at night and began filming one of these drones. Went on Twitter, believe he posted either the video or just his account in text, and he got visited by some federal marshals who looked like federal marshals, and they said they know who he is, they know what he posted, he needs to stop doing that. You get that happen to you once or twice, you may be out of the game. you need a backbone when you start getting that kind of activity. So I am also concerned at how little public appetite and mainstream media appetite there was to call to carpet, the defense people. I mean, even state, regional, local officials, national officials were calling for the same, right? And so, I mean, if there are more UFO hearings to come, which reportedly there are in Congress and in the Senate.
10 seconds. We'll stop right there. Guys, don't go anywhere. We're going to jump right back into the conversation with Reed Summer right after this break, which we're taking right now on the Spaced Out Radio After Hours Radio Show.
Conversations that move the needle.
Conversations that move the needle.
You're listening to After Hours with Mr. Rob G on the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, commercial break. See you guys in 5 minutes. right, everybody. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio after hour number 2 with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. We'll be joined back here with our guest, Reed Summers, here as we have about 30 seconds before we come back from radio. You guys, make sure you get your questions posted in all caps, and we'll go ahead and I'll flag them, and we'll ask them at the end of the hour. I would appreciate you guys doing that. And let me see. Okay. All right. Here we go. All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. This is after hour number 2 as we jump back into the conversation with our guest, Reed Summers. Guys, if you're watching this show from social media, which some of you are on X, go ahead and hit the little heart button. Don't forget, you can also give us a follow. We would totally appreciate that as we go ahead and further the conversation here. Reed, there was one thing, we were speaking in the first hour about the whole drone situation, which is still going on. And just looking at this, so let's just assume this turns out to be maybe the beginning of something that's going to be up there every single day for who knows forever. You had on your channel something called one of your shows mentioned societal readiness for NHI disclosure, and I think that kind of would fit in the moment that we're in right now. Right. What is your idea of that, and how would we go about if this was that moment?
Hard to say. Well, first off, which society, right? Because there's the Western liberal society versus other societies. There's American society. So, and then what part of society? Because society can collectively describe any institutional or collective grouping of human beings in any sense: medical, governmental, philosophical, educational, media. So it's a big question and a big issue, and I think it has to move in many different ways. My interest, again, like I've shared, talking to average people in logical and grounded ways. I'm very amazed at how many people can engage with this. I'm encouraged about societal readiness. I would say minimum half can absolutely go there, can absolutely think it through, maintain their head, open-minded but not so open that their brain falls out. And not react with overt emotional reaction, whether it's fear or what have you, or running into the arms of a possible entity that can fix our world crisis and do all sorts of things for us. So I'm impressed at that level. That said, I think society broadly is very vulnerable, and I think it's not been readied for this moment. I think that the powers that be have possibly done their well, I wouldn't say best. They've done certain things to try to ready society. And I think the mass media on alien contact, alien abductions even. I was revisiting the X-Files from the 90s, early 2000s. Unbelievable, some of those storylines, folks. When you come to a clear picture of what's going on at that level, I'm sorry, that was public education. Okay? Not public obfuscation. And so the 3-body problem. Not to say that whole story reflects the scenario at play, but part of it does, I would say. And so what does that mean? I think there is an attempt to ready society, and I think you could possibly successful. I mean, people are ready to talk about visitation from beyond our world by other forces who are more technologically advanced. And I don't lean too much on what Hollywood produces as a valuable educational vehicle. I would prefer better and different educational vehicles. But yeah, I think at the mass media level, people might be more ready than we think. At the religious ontological level, I would probably say less ready than we think. At the level of institutions, I think somewhat ready. Again, though, what are we talking about here? What disclosure? Accurate disclosure? Inaccurate disclosure? Partial? Complete? What's the narrative, right? And is it accurate to the events taking place? I don't think truly accurate disclosure will be undertaken in good faith by any governing authority. I can't imagine it. I think it has to be, someone's got to smash the little glass box with the with the fire hydrant in it and start spraying, right? And so who's going to make that break in the glass? I mean, the UFO hearings have been a very powerful attempt to do so, and they may have done so. We'll see. Time will tell. The testimony of Dave Grush was very powerful and compelling. The two Navy pilots, Ryan Graves, Michael Frazier, and then this last hearing with Lou Elizondo, Tim Gallaudet, Michael Schellenberger, and Michael Gold. I think, this is new territory. The playing field has changed, and we've got, better coaches, better quarterback, better running backs, better wide receivers, and we're playing this game in better ways. That's why this drone situation is somewhat treacherous. Do not bite, because this could be bait. We don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And so hang out, do your due diligence, think the way you should be thinking, engage with this phenomenon in the right way, and we will get where we need to go. And so societal readiness, gosh, a huge question. And I'm going to be talking to people on my show from all different fields about that. But I think people are more ready than ever before to talk about extraterrestrial life. Science is detecting sun-like stars orbited by Earth-like worlds. I was listening to a lecture by Carl Nell recently. Life on Earth evolved in the Hadean era. That was an era in which the crust of the Earth had not yet cooled, which just talks about the proclivity of life to arise of its own based on the chemical constituents of our universe. And so it's like, if life arises on its own based on those terms here, if it happened here, it could happen elsewhere. I mean, this Earth and our solar system are a part of the mechanisms of our universe. They are not apart from the universe. And so to think that they are truly anomalous, this is the only place where life ever arose, I think that argument, it's going to take a lot more evidence to prove to argue for that than it will for the fact that life can arise elsewhere and that sentient life could arise, technological life. The universe has been around for 13 billion years. Our sun is a relatively young star. There have been other stars that have been around much longer. Other planets have formed much earlier in the universe's life cycle. Life could have arisen there and gone through so many iterations. So I think people are thinking in these ways already.
Yeah, obviously there's two ways you could look at disclosure. A lot of people say they have their own disclosure. I mean, I've seen UFOs, so I could say that myself as well. But it seems like in the main conversation on when we have it on a large stage, disclosure always seems to involve the governments. Like the governments just have to be a part of this conversation. Well, I don't really think that that's necessarily the case. I would think that, potentially we could have a disclosure moment where extraterrestrials want to connect directly with humanity and not necessarily the answer, the confirmation have to come through any government. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's problematic. I think it's in human nature to want to follow authority. Might be in our hierarchical kind of like our evolutionary makeup. I think we do need to undertake citizen disclosure, absolutely. And it can happen in increments. And I know that's not exciting to think that you could convince 10 people, at a supermarket that UFOs are real and that they represent non-human intelligence, but I've done it. Hey, that's 10 more people. I'm just one person doing that. I mean, what if a lot of people started doing that, had the conversation, normalized these ideas, argued for them, argued well, brought forward the evidence, demonstrated methodical, logical thinking. I mean, and instinctual thinking and intuitive thinking, right? So it's like, because these are the ways that people think. And so why don't we think like them? And the more we fringe ourselves accidentally by undermining our own human capabilities, we fork ourselves from the mainstream, and we might even deride the mainstream as controlled, manipulated, brainwashed. I think these are part of the obfuscation tactics. This is psychological corralling of those who have become aware of the phenomenon. And there are powers that don't want that awareness to become broad and mainstream. And so how do you keep it from doing so? You effectively muzzle the people who could do it. Better yet, to have them muzzle themselves. So I think we want to avoid that. There are other institutions in the world that could undertake forms of disclosure that at least crack this open. There are religious organizations like the Vatican. The Vatican, I have been told, could do this. They have enough of the evidence themselves to effectively do this. Will they? Hard to imagine, right? And then we get to the NHI themselves. In my view, I think there are 4 disclosures. There are 4 layers to disclosure. There's the citizen disclosure, which is key because the bulk of the engagement from NHI to human intelligence, has happened at the citizen level. The US government, other foreign governments, they may have been brokering technologies, transacting. They may have been undertaking programs that have yielded powerful forms of whatever, science and even knowledge. But the bulk of the engagement has not been with them. It's been with us. So if people get talking about what they know to bring forward their knowledge to others, that's citizen disclosure. That's huge, and that needs to happen. And there are even evidential ways that we can do this, like citizen UAP tracking technologies, like I talked about. Next up, government disclosure. Governments saying what they know. I think there are elements within government that know that this needs to happen, and they're trying. But it's very difficult for governments to do this. Governments don't do this. Governments don't disclose their secrets, right? Statecraft is not built upon, authentic, open airing out of truths and wrongdoings. And no, it's just that's not how governments function. They're about security, stability, power, provision, competition with others who might bar them from being able to do those things. So, I think government could undertake certain key acts of disclosure that then open up the bigger potential for disclosure at the citizen level. And I hope that that's what's going to happen in the next 4 years. And then above government is NHI disclosure. The NHI have not disclosed, to my knowledge, in any way that we can verify and corroborate. And in fact, a lot of the purported communications from NHI are alarming. There seems to be some attempt at narrative manipulation regarding their presence here. Their argumentation is not only weak, but it's subversive, and it undermines people's logic and instinct, and it basically demeans our native value and our native institutions and our trust in one another. I've seen this so many times. We are painted as a virus in the universe that needs containment, right? Or that has been contained effectively for hundreds of thousands of years. And we are essentially children of another master. These narratives, okay, maybe imagine that they're true for a moment, or part of them is true. How would we verify that? How would we verify the claims of a non-human intelligence? Very difficult to do. If they said that they authored a religious text or that they seeded humanity in this world, how do you verify that? And how do you verify that they were the ones who did it? Any NHI coming here would want the boon of arguing for authorship of human origins, right? It's the keys to the kingdom. It's the keys to the human mind. It's the keys to the human heart. It's the ultimate way to win us over, even if they think what they're doing is good, even if they have a beneficial intent in their own mind. Who would not want to access and utilize our ignorance, which is tremendous. We have very little understanding of our place in the universe, our origins in this earth. There are gaps in our knowledge base, right? We don't know how modern man quite made the leap in intelligence, right? So any NHI could come and say, "Oh yeah, that was us. We did that. We seeded non-human intelligence inside of you, and you are more us than you are what you think you are." And then how many millions swoon, right? So we're very vulnerable to narrative manipulation. And based on the record of how NHI has operated in the world over the last 80 years at least, I don't know if we can trust a disclosure. If there's a mass reveal in 2027, right? They appear over every city. The government sends up their drones. Good luck. Too bad. They can't hide this one. This craft is the size of a football field, right? And the world awakens, you could say. The NHI can say anything they want. And they can do it for all the right reasons in their own mind. Their intent almost doesn't matter, right? But the outcome for humanity could be very deleterious. And the utility of how we can verify and corroborate who they say they are. Who they are is who they say they are. Very low, and it's a divider. It's a dividing event. You know, some will believe, some will not. Those who believe will war against those who do not. Right, and so in a strange sense, we're not ready for contact. Contact really should not be happening at our stage of development as a global society. I think we need to move in the direction of contact. And I think this event is useful towards our evolution in that direction. But in all honesty, NHI, if they were here for really good intent, they would not be doing what they are doing. They would not be transacting with state authorities, state actors who are in cold wars and hot wars with one another. They would not be doing non-consensual contact in the form of abduction. They would not be operating in a secret, covert fashion in ways, but also making very overt displays of presence and of force over military sites, cities. It's happened, right? Why the lights? You can't travel across the stars. You can travel across the stars, but you can't fix the problem of luminosity in your craft. You can't effectively cloak. In fact, there are cases of UFOs reportedly cloaking themselves very effectively and completely. So I would have to say even the use of lights over urban areas. This is a show of presence. This is to influence perception in some way. So why would an NHI be doing this if they're here to help us at this time? I mean, this is a dividing kind of contact, not a unifying kind of contact. I think there are potential unifying forms of contact. And I think the fourth layer of disclosure, so citizen, government, NHI, is exopolitical disclosure, is that some entity or group of entities or multiple groups from our exosystem of life, whatever neighborhood of life we're in, could come down the street, knock on our door and say, hey, you know, I know you've never been outside your front door yet. You just need to be careful out here. This is who this is. This is who that is. This is how things work. I'm not here to enter your house. I'm not an intruder. I just want to let you know what your neighborhood is like. I think that is a form of disclosure that could come very predictably. Like, this may be a very predictable evolutionary path humanity's walking that gets walked by other races in the universe. And at a certain threshold, a communication is attempted to wake up those people to their situation. But that's very different than the form of physical, kinetic contact that we're seeing in the world today. And that was a long answer.
Yeah, no, an awesome answer. But no, I mean, when you look around and you look historically, you know, we have so many instances of whatever these things are, landing their craft, getting out of their craft, going into people's rooms, doing abductions, just having that face-to-face contact. And so, you know, you would think that if we had an event like what this potentially could be, that you would have the same thing. Maybe they're landing in this case. And so, you know, I'm just looking at the disclosure from extraterrestrial to human directly. But when we try to have these conversations with people who you know, put up excuses like the ones the government counts on us arguing over, is the fact that maybe the government has reverse engineered craft. Maybe we've gotten to a level where we figured out anti-gravitics. Is it more likely to you, just logically or just kind of looking at it, that if we saw something that was clearly anti-gravitic in the sky, would it be more likely that that is human beings that have somehow in only 120 years of flights figured out anti-gravitics? Or would it be more likely that that craft is being controlled by someone that's been around much longer and has had time to develop something like this? What would be more likely?
Hard to say. I mean, you know, paint me a scenario. What am I looking at here? Am I looking at one craft whizzing over a city once? Am I looking at one craft loitering for 3 weeks over Manhattan? You know, and so, because part of the problem here, and this is part of the problem of our lack of human response to this visitation, which was hobbled by multiple factors, not least of which was the decision to keep this secret from the public, but also an undisciplined approach to analyzing the phenomenon with a response-minded framework. Like in the intelligence world, okay, they're dealing with incomplete information all the time. They don't have all the time in the world to collect all the best evidence. You got to act. You got to act now because you're dealing with another entity with an intent. And so we have not regarded this phenomenon that way. We have chosen to study it or to entertain it, right? But we have not chosen to prioritize human response to it. And as a result, we've allowed it to persist in our environment for decades. And these technologies of non-Earth origin have found their way into the hands of human actors. And now we don't know if there's an anti-gravitic craft, is that ours, is that theirs? It becomes much more difficult. And that's only going to get more difficult. And then, of course, we have the distortive capability of technology, AI, such that video, photo, it can be manufactured at this point. Right. So we're entering dangerous waters. This is reality collapse, you know, and the time to respond to this is diminishing, I would say. So it's hard for me to say. I mean, I would say if the craft is doing phenomenal performance things in ways that no government actor or private company would want to do, like why would they want to do that, such that it reveals the technology, exposes them, then I think we might start to lean in towards the latter of those two options.
And you know, I just point out, because it was in 1903, the Wright brothers took a 12-second flight, which was the first aircraft that we flew on. 12-second flight, 1903. So it is that 123 years ago. And it's just like, okay, could human beings go from that point to anti-gravitics within 120 years? And it's just like, it would seem like it'd take a lot longer to develop something like that. These extraterrestrials having this tech have been around way longer, and I'm sure it took them more than 120 years to develop that technology. So I mean, because the thing is that as long as there are secret projects, then the government is able to just sit back and allow the citizens to argue over, oh, well, maybe they have figured it out, or maybe they haven't, but there's no proof that we have ever cracked the code on any of this sort of stuff. So it's like, you know, when that's a main part of an argument, but there's no proof to it, it's like we want to be able to eliminate that from the conversation, because then it only leaves, you know, one other answer to that, not humans, and it's them. You know what I mean? But for some reason, we feel like we are so smart that we figured this out. And I have a problem with that. I just don't know if we have. I just don't know.
I can't imagine we would have organically figured this out on the timeline that we have without help, or without gifts, or some would say these are all crashed vehicles. I would contest that. I don't think it's logical to assume that all of these are just randomly crashed or accidentally crashed or shot down, and we've just been tinkering with them on the side. I think this is an engagement. This is a technological interface. Yeah, I know. I wondered, you know, with this Tesla truck explosion, this alleged letter from this U.S. military personnel who ended their life in this vehicle, and the vehicle, you know, exploded. In this letter, they talk about, I believe that these craft are anti-gravitic. There's a lot of stuff in that. I don't know about the authenticity of that letter. I can't speak to that, but I have wondered, and I did wonder the moment I saw it, if this is the way to disclosures, to walk backward from what we have in the form of these technologies, which immediately opens the question, how did you obtain this technology? What was the developmental pathway, right?
Right.
You know, and so it inevitably, it's like you can't piece this puzzle together without adding the final puzzle piece of NHI. Yeah. So it just, there's no way to explain, right, our radical ascent to technologies of this ability. So I've wondered if this is a way, is how can we disclose them? By disclosing us, right? It's hard to disclose them when they're still in the picture, able to evade and respond, right? So, but we can disclose ourselves and those of us who have gained these technologies.
Yeah, and that's an awesome answer as we get ready to go into our third and final break of the night, guys. Reed Summers is here, podcast emergent. Make sure you guys subscribe, to his channel. Awesome content going on over there. We have about 30 more minutes, so I want to make sure you guys get your questions in. I haven't seen many, but I have checked some. Make sure you go ahead and post them in all caps, and we'll get to those right after the break. All right, we are clear. Yeah, it's just a frustrating thing. Like when you sit down and you talk to skeptics, because I love to have conversations with skeptics, and it's just the same excuses they throw up. Okay, they're like, "Okay, extraterrestrial craft could never make it here. It's too far. There's no way that they're here." I'm like, "Well, we're seeing something." And then their go-to is always, "Oh, it's government tech." It's like, well, what's your basis to say that? You know, and it goes back to the Ben Rich quote I talked when I was talking to Jim Goodall, where he says we have the tech to take ET back home. That could be looked at a couple ways. It could be looked at as either we reverse engineered, which is what a lot of people feel, or it could simply mean we've recovered their craft that has the ability to take ET home. So it can be looked at either way. And I think it's probably more so that we've retrieved their tech, but there isn't anything we could point to, and I'd be open to it, that we have ourselves figured out how to just recreate this technology. I just don't.
I think there's also a possibility. It's almost like osmotic transfer of technology, which is we recovered the craft. We weren't able to fly it. We weren't able to figure out how to control its flight either, or to sustain its flight, or to basically mass produce such a vehicle, or scale it. But we were able to gain certain key insights that of certain systems of the craft that gave rise to technologies that we could bring into existing human platforms. Colonel Philip Corso talked about fiber optics, Kevlar. I don't know, but I have been told by some folks who I trust that possibly the more likely scenario is that we have basically discovered certain we have had ideas looking at these craft, like, oh wow, we never thought to do it that way, to make the skin of the vehicle the vehicle by which, or the means by which information can travel, the very skin of it, not just wires under the skin, but the actual fabric of the surface of the craft, as an example. So I think some insights have been gained, and those have found their ways into marketable technologies that we might use even today. It's possible.
I could see that. I could see definitely getting some good ideas, but it's like, when you have Lukatsky a year or two ago saying we just barely breached the hole in one of these things. Then you have Bob Lazar out there saying it appears that they keep bringing this back out every 10 years to see if we could crack the code, would almost indicate that we haven't cracked the code. And it's like,
I have to be honest, that my sense at the moment could be wrong, and I'm open to adjusting it, but I don't think there is a complete parallel civilization that has, broken away and developed technologies that are just based on complete radical science that we don't think can possibly exist, and that there are like two parallel tracks running at the moment, and that other track has, can whiz around, stars and take ET home. My sense is that's not the case. I mean, I know some amazing things have been said, some deathbed testimony has been given, which trust it as you will or not, but would suggest that everything we think is true or possible at the level of science, we're wrong. And somebody else has either figured it out or is trying to. So, but I think we're not as far down the road as we might imagine. That's my sense.
Yeah. And like I said, as long as and the silence is deafening, and that's kind of what the government counts on, is that you can jump down that rabbit hole, and they're probably laughing as well, like, we definitely haven't figured out antigravitics if they only knew. But then maybe they have. I mean, that's why I say I stay in the middle of the road, because the evidence will take you either way, and I'm fine with that. But it's just when we sit down and have these conversations, opposing views, this is one of the things, the unproven things that
Yeah.
people always go to, and it's just like, well, give me some evidence besides a statement that someone said, or besides a deathbed confession. Like, what did we see that kind of points to the fact that maybe we've done that? I mean, and
Yeah.
that's all I would like to see. Give
Well,
me
in that
that,
sense,
and I can lean in on the conversation.
I think the current drone situation is a potential opportunity in that we could demonstrate provably that there are craft that can do things orders of magnitude greater than any known craft. And then that opens the conversation. How was that developed? And was that legal? You know, and what was the competitive framework, you know, the market framework, the scientific framework, you know, was this knowledge shared equitably in an educational setting, in a university setting, you know? So like, was it patented or taken outside of of lawful competition with other economic players, you know? So maybe some crimes were committed, right? And maybe that's the scandal that blows this thing open. We shall see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As we're coming back right now. All right, everyone. Welcome back. Spaced Out Radio after hour 1.5. Back half of the second hour. We only have about 20 minutes left with our guest here, Reed Summers. So we're going to make sure we get your questions in here as well. If you missed any of the conversation that we had tonight, you can jump into the archives. They're absolutely free. YouTube.com/@SpacedOutRadio. You got to catch up on what you missed as we go ahead and get right on in to a few of the questions, because I do see some out there. And we had a question. This was from earlier here. Christina Hartley was saying, so what does Reed think? What do they want? What is the alien agenda?
Well, you know, there's what I think, and then there's what we can all think. And I'm trying to work towards what we can collectively assess, or what you know, a reasonable, intelligent, well-informed person could come to on their own. So that's my focus right now. I think there are strong indications based on the behavior of what appears to be craft of non-human origin and the entity controller that do not suggest a beneficial intent. I can pause right there. Now, that doesn't mean that they're hostile or detrimental. It just means it does not suggest a beneficial intent. There are so many ways the NHI could have overtly demonstrated beneficial intent. They have not chosen to do that. Okay, you look at the events of the 20th century, a lot of bad things have happened. People like to say all the time, and I want people to stop saying it, please, that if they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already. And so therefore, they're here to help us, or therefore something. And it's like, there are so many ways to enact an agenda that is not overt destruction and overtly observable aggression, like we would do it. That is 100% anthropomorphic thinking applied to these entities. We need to be thinking way more intelligent. How would a supersentience meet their needs? Maybe they're concerned about what we're doing to the planet, and they want to save the planet, or maybe they want what the planet has for themselves. Like, how would you enact an agenda like that? These are very real possibilities, by the way. And so they're not just going to come down and wipe us out and eradicate human civilization at great cost and great destruction. I mean, so there are these logical fallacies that I need to stop hearing as much as I hear. I still hear them all the time. I heard it on stage at the Soul Conference, for God's sakes. Okay, of all places. Like, this is the weakest logic we have being applied to one of the biggest events in human history, and it's not okay. So this whole argument that, you know, because they haven't, they must be. It's like, yes, but they are also doing other things. There is mountains of human testimony regarding encounters with entities, physical beings. These physical beings are reported to have bodily structures, right? Ears, nose, mouth, feet, digits. What does that say to you? That says to you that this is an evolved entity. Okay? There are indications that they may not be entirely biological. They could be a biological drone of some kind. They could be a manufactured entity. Sure. But that there is an entity even manufacturing an entity suggests that there is a form of intent to programmatically reach an endpoint in our world without us knowing it, right? In a state of secrecy and non-disclosure. So what does that tell you? What this does is it bounds these infinite possibilities that we love to explore and entertain into more logical probabilities. I think there are very logical probabilities that suggest that there is a self-serving NHI intent that differs from our own, that disregards our own, okay, and that it is willing to engage in activities that we would commonly call crimes, and in some cases, crimes against humanity. You know, forced removal, abduction, reproductive intervention, undisclosed medical practices. These things may be happening. So now, maybe they think they're doing the best of all things. So maybe they think their intent is good. What is our intent? And if we abandon our intent and say, well, they know better, they're more advanced than us. Look at us. We're a groveling, species that's destroying the planet and killing ourselves. Well, true, but that does not validate or justify the activity of a non-human entity doing things like that to us. Okay, so these logical leaps people make are leaps over a chasm, and you can entertain them all you want, that's fine. But the truth is the broad public isn't going to. Governments aren't going to respond based upon hopeful thinking like that. They're going to engage in this with the consideration that this might be a threat and that some of these activities are alarming, that do transgress established rules-based systems that govern how humans function in our present world. Now you can say, let's throw all that out. Let's go the alien way, team alien. And there are people who do, right? That is a non-viable proposal, 100%. Go to the United Nations and advocate team alien, non-viable. So what is the viable proposal? This is what I'm working on. This is my focus weekly now, is even beyond my podcast, is beginning to explore the dimensions of human sovereignty, of international collaboration, and frameworks by which governments could potentially agree upon policy that regulates the activity of non-human intelligence, as we must. Argue that with me, someone, please, right? Say we should do nothing. Say we should let them do anything. Do it now. I want the debate. Anyway, so what is the alien agenda, to get back to the question? I think we need to distill down to a clear assessment of that based upon indications, behavior, first principles thinking, and other usable tools that we have in our human knowledge base. And then with that, go get better evidence. We need to go evidentially substantiate the abduction phenomenon. And we haven't done that. Why haven't we done that? That's a question.
It's a stigma. It's a stigma because you're right. If we got all the abductees together and put together, formed a pattern of things that these things are doing to people, then we'd have a picture of, what the intent is when they're taking people. And not to mention that with 600,000 people just going missing in the United States alone, are they not bringing some people back? Like, are they only so what's going on there? So there's definitely something deeper that we need to uncover for sure.
Yeah.
With that being said, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you're so right. And there are so many unknowns, and we can't yet account for the part that this group of entities is playing. I just saw the monthly report, I believe it was, from the U.S. agency that deals with missing persons, 25,000 missing persons unaccounted for in the month of November. So I'm not saying that's NHI. I'm saying we don't know.
Right.
Now, NHI could come down in the next few years, mass appearance, we can heal cancer. Look, 73% of experiencers report a positive net experience in one survey done with questionable methodology years ago, and people are just, they're there. This must be good. And little do we know that others are being taken, and we can't monitor that, and some of them may not even be returned. I mean, what's happening in the jungles of Brazil? What's happening in sub-Saharan Africa and Western China, where there are over 1 million essentially enslaved Uyghur individuals whose lives are taking place outside the purview of the global community? We don't know, folks. So we can't say, we can't make conclusions about or advocate for partnership with an NHI when we cannot account for what might be happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, and they want to use prosaic explanations like traffickers, which is definitely an issue, to not say that there isn't. But if only one person out of 600,000 was taken off planet and not brought back. That's a problem. And
In the free study, there were the non 73% said they had life-altering, detrimental physical encounters that harmed them profoundly. Okay, so like we need to go look at that. It doesn't matter if 73% said it felt good and 23. What about the other 27% that said they did not have a good experience? So yeah.
And that is the main reason why I feel like they have disconnected and cut the experiencers out of the conversation. Because if this was being talked about on that big stage, I think people would be, I mean, because all they're getting is, yeah, something's in the sky, it might be aliens, but they're not getting the real stories. Like if those stories were being told on the stage and they realized that there were so many people that are dealing with that same thing, they might be in for a shock and would want answers, I'm sure.
It's true. Yeah.
But Lavera Lucchini, thanks for your awesome support. She's asking, do you think aliens will lie about God either way? Yes, there is a creator God, or we created you. Do you believe in an ultimate God?
Great question, actually. Could NHI lie about God? Absolutely. We're a religious species. We are predisposed to associate to a higher power and to listen to a higher power, to seek out the voice of a higher power, or those who say they can, like a religious authority. And so, you know, if you were to do long-term surveillance and intelligence gathering on our species, which may have happened, you know, you would be taking all that in. You would be understanding the nature of the local entity. How do they think? You know, what are their power structures? Where do they tend to let their guard down or ascribe ultimate qualities to another entity? And so would NHI clothe themselves in the appearance of a super entity, of a divine entity, of an entity that can transit dimensions? And they'll show us how to, right? We are very vulnerable to those kinds of offers and claims. I'm reading the question here. I don't quite get the middle sentence, but do you believe in an ultimate God? I guess that's a personal question to me. I do believe there is an overarching conscious will for the universe that moves through life, through sentient life. And I see that in the human space, and I would look out to the universe to anticipate that as well. However, in ignorance of that, look what people can do, right? Look what we do to each other in violation of that. I would imagine the same can happen out there. I do not look out and see a divine manifestation only. I see a divine manifestation operating underneath a manifest, physical manifestation that might be driven by some of the same tendencies and states of experience that we are for survival and for competition.
Awesome stuff. Let me see. Kim Jellin is asking, if NHI came due to nuclear activity, what are they doing zipping around in drones?
Well, there is longstanding, well-established history regarding UAP interest in nuclear sites. If that's all NHI, I don't know. Could that also be foreign adversary? It could. What are they? If it is NHI, I think it makes a lot of sense that it partly would be NHI, because the creation of nuclear weapons and the generation of energy at the atomic level is one of the great scientific achievements of the human species, and one of the worst, you could say, as well. So it's notable. And also, we have used nuclear weapons thousands of times on this planet, which might have been the very technosignature that either brought them here or that precipitated their direct intervention into our world. So that is quite an observable event. We're looking for gaseous signatures of life, biosignatures from of stars light years away. What about the technosignature of a nuclear weapon going off? Do you think that's detectable? Absolutely, I would say it's probably detectable, and also it would provide tons of information about us, about our destructiveness, about our technological level of advancement. And it would basically potentially signal the universe, hey, look, that's the level of societal and technological development they've achieved. Maybe now is a good time to engage them, because then you can couple with our technology. And in this potential scenario of integration with us which runs through a lot of the contact-related alleged contact experiences that are out there. I think the technology, the level of technology, might be part of that. That we have to become, we have to go from a tribal state, primitive forms of energy use, storage, generation, to ones in which a non-human technosphere can merge with our own. So what are they doing? Great question. And I would actually be very curious in the forthcoming years if there is any sort of nuclear escalation beyond what we have today, or even a limited nuclear exchange a la Ukraine. Do UAP show up, and what happens next? Because it would be a phenomenal opportunity for a non-human entity to come and impede our use of a nuclear weapon, and thus demonstrate seemingly that they come in peace, right? They have literally potentially saved lives, and they have also in their act demonstrated our barbarism, not only to ourselves, but to who knows who else is out there in our exosystem of life. Who else is watching? Maybe they need to see us either demonstrate better qualities to justify sovereignty, or lower qualities to justify intervention. So there may be a larger audience than we're aware of. And so I will be very curious to see what UFO activity around nuclear weapons is in the forthcoming years. I think that's actually a major indicator to keep your eye on.
Yeah, and then it's about, are they protecting us, which it could be, like you just stated, or are they protecting their resources because they want this planet for themselves and don't want us to poison it? I mean, it could be either one of those things. But Andromedan is asking, does Reed Summers think there are other human collectives than here?
I don't know quite what that means. Are you asking, are there humans that
Off-planet,
live on?
probably, yeah.
I see. I think I've heard this kind of theory that, some humans were taken off planet long ago in our, branched off our evolutionary tree, and now they have been living elsewhere in the universe and have been, I don't know, reintroduced, or maybe that's what we're seeing. No, I don't find that to be a substantive scenario to consider. Nor do I think the future humans line of thinking is at play myself. I don't think the indications support that claim. It's often said that, well, the Greys, they have body plans similar to our own, bipedal, digits, just the way that their head seems to be, placed on their body, etc. This is not, it arose here. We know that. We can only imagine it arising elsewhere. Well, the gray alien is not the only entity that's been reported, folks. So
Right.
If you imagine your ancient ancestor a mantid being, go ahead, be my guest. If you imagine your ancestor being a gray entity, or I'm sorry, if you imagine that what our species will become in 100,000 years is a gray alien, you're welcome to. The key thing is that even if that were true, even if, basically human beings 100,000 years from now developed into that entity and then transited time back to our current moment, they would not be human. A chimpanzee is not a human. And that entity is removed from us morphologically, biologically, such as what you see, right? A gray alien is way different looking than us than a chimp or a gorilla. So to say that they would be us from the future would not be accurate. They are not our species.
I'm glad you said that too, because there's definitely something that floats around this community. So I'm glad you addressed that. We have Super Crazy Movie Geek asking, do you think humans and aliens agreement with timelines, goals, and milestones, etc.?
I mean, there is hearsay of that. I've been told by some people who would know that has happened, and that was eye-opening. I think for NHI to operate in our world as they have, as long as they have, probably implied some level of human permission or permissibility, especially on land. So I know the oceans are there, right? So it's that's the ultimate hiding place. It's the basement that's locked to us, and goes 10 stories down. So how much human agreement do they need to operate It might be less than we think. I don't think whole governments are in cahoots with non-human intelligence. I think it's individuals, not organizations, largely. I get the sense that direct contacts have been made with individuals in multiple governments over time by multiple different types of entities. And that attempts were made to curry favor and to transact possibly technology for access to human populations for the abduction program, which is very alarming and really constitutes the hardest part of this whole thing. That and the hybridization program, which are connected, I would say. So it's hard. It's difficult. Who are those humans? What are those agreements? I am not in possession of that information, so I could only speculate.
Awesome answer. And Super Crazy Movie Geek stating, hiding advanced ET tech is one thing, but where is the advanced ET medicine to destroy cancer and other diseases? Do you think we have obtained that with the help of living ET beings over the years?
I don't know what NHI have brought into our world and who they've given it to and to what end. So is it possible they have that technology to eradicate a disease, a malignancy that we have not been able to? 100%. I wouldn't underestimate the biological barrier that our planet poses to non-human forms of life, especially if they're space dwelling. This is a world of 1 million viruses and more that could erupt into a pandemic at any moment. Okay. So this planet is intensely biological, intensely pathogenic. And if you are a space dwelling being that has never encountered any of that, I don't know if NHI has overcome that technological problem or that medical problem, you might say. So, we see a lot of reports of humanoid creatures in suits. We do see plenty of reports of creatures outside of suits, but are those biodrones? Are those entities manufactured for this human environment? It's a possibility. But yes, if ET came forward suddenly, all of a sudden, after 100 years of covert operations, said, we have the cure for cancer. Oh, we are here to basically prevent a nuclear exchange. I would be very wary of those claims. And I'm very acutely aware of how on earth do we ever verify those claims, right? And so as long as we're holding out for some benefit, we're vulnerable, right? As long as we'll say, okay, well, we'll forget about all that as long as they'll give us this trinket from space or this medical, device. I mean, we're vulnerable. We're still in the mode of transacting for self-benefit. And the moment we benefit, someone else doesn't. It's an instant divider, right? Technology of non-Earth origin, instant divider. Why is that in our world? That's a real question. Why did NHI bring it here? Real question. They know what it's doing. They know what it will do. So there is an argument at hand for, in light of all factors, we need the removal of all NHI from our human Earth system until such time as we can come to international agreement and regulation as to how we interact and what we take into our technological system or what have you. So call it remove and reset. Do we need a full removal of NHI and reset to a state where humanity is 100% organically developing, right? Our technology is not being altered. Our data sets are not being taken from us and reintroduced in the form of aggressive forms of artificial intelligence, which, who knows, possible. We need the right to a sovereign space from which to make educated decisions as to how to interact with non-human life, which I do hope we will do. I do want to interact with non-human life. But we can't do it when we're 192 countries and a world on fire, and we're not even engaging our Earth-based solutions, and we're reaching for alien solutions. So, this is cart before the horse to think that we need to go into some sort of open engagement with extraterrestrial life.
All right. You got about 15 seconds to tell everybody where to find you.
ReedSummers.com. My podcast is called Emergent. I have a course hosted by the New Paradigm Institute. I'm writing a book on this topic, all these topics. I also have a lecture coming up that I presented at MUFON recently that'll be on my website shortly. So subscribe to the show, drop me a line, and find me on Twitter, ReedSummers7.
Reed, awesome stuff once again, man. Glad to know you, and we're gonna have future conversations. I gotta get Reed Summers on speed dial.
Conversations that move the needle.
Talk to you soon, Reed. Thanks for coming on in. You have a great
Listening to
rest of your
After
night.
You too, Rob. Thank you.
Mr. Rob
Yes,
G.
sir. Take care.
On the only place where you can own the night. Spaced Out Radio.
Spaced Out Radio.
You've tuned your dial to the right frequency.
All right, as we go ahead and get ready to jump into our second commercial break of the night. See you in just a minute. right, everyone. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours radio show, after hour number 3, with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Awesome guest, Reed Summers, tonight, as always. Second time he's been here. You got to go back and check out the first interview as well, as we get ready to jump right back into the show here. 5 seconds. All right, everyone. Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, after hour number 3, the final hour of the show. Meet your host, Mr. Rob G. We want to thank our awesome guest tonight, Reed Summers. Hours 1 and 2, just awesome conversation every time, and look forward to speaking to him again down the road. Make sure if you missed any of tonight's show, you jump into the archives, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, where you're going to find that you missed an awesome show. So make sure you go ahead and catch up as we go ahead and get ready to jump into Steve Stockton Tells Untold Missing Persons Mysteries, which once again is always awesome to have Steve Stockton as part of the show. And we're going to jump right on into it. Here we go.
Welcome to Tales Untold and Missing Persons Mysteries on Spaced Out Radio's After Hours. My name is Steve Stockton, and I'm here to take you on a journey of mysteries, legends, and true stories. Come, join me on this strange adventure of Tales Untold and Missing Person Mysteries. My daughter's experience. My family and I were camping at the end of June of this year. It was my husband, our daughters, a son-in-law, and one grandchild. Everything was great. We had a spectacular time. About a month later, after the trip, my eldest daughter, who was in a tent by herself, told me about an experience she had while we were in the woods. She told me that she had woken during the night to a snarl-like growl, and what she could only explain as a weight on her chest, and what felt like something holding her down at the shoulders. When she heard this snarl/growl, she was understandably startled and thought, "What the F is that?" She couldn't move. She looked around her tent and could tell everything was secure. Then the weight was gone and she bolted upright. She was scared to death. She had to go to the bathroom, but wasn't going to leave her tent for any reason until dawn. The next morning, she woke up to a horrendous nosebleed, which she never gets. I believe she had a supernatural experience, as I believe that there are beings out in the woods that we can't explain. Thank you, Julie. Werewolf of Wisconsin. Hello, I have a real-life story I would like to share. My name is Sean, and I'm a truck driver from Florida. I drive all over the United States and Canada. I started my career in December of 1999. Following year, I found myself driving I-94 from Washington State to New Jersey, running apples and cranberries. I was 22 in 2001, young and full of energy. One late evening, late in the month of September, I wanted to get out of the truck and get a few beers. So I stopped in Tomah, Wisconsin at the Holiday Inn, parked my truck and check in at the local bar inside. Before I knew it, I was talking and hooked up with a sweet Swedish girl who was an exchange student, smoking hot little blonde. As the night progressed, we left in her car, drove around town to another bar, stayed there until it closed around 2:30 a.m. or so. We spent the night partying and enjoying each other's company. She looks at me and asks me later, "Let's go joyriding." I said, okay. Both of us were pretty drunk, I guess. Neither of us should have been driving at all, but we did. We headed south of town and into the pitch black of the countryside as the city's lights one by one disappeared. We made our way to a set of railroad tracks. She stops the car on the tracks. It was a yellow car, if I recall. There was just enough light to see the tree line across the field. We climb out and sat on the hood, which coaxed me to join her in a little pleasure. The mood was definitely set between us. Peace and calm was simple during our passion. The only light was the headlights from her car, piercing the blackness of the night. It was easily past 3 a.m. at this point. She is lying on the hood, and my back is turned to my surroundings. Suddenly, we both heard a god-awful cry, like a howl from a nightmare. It was louder than any lion and a measure of equal size, piercing the inner core of us both. It literally went through me. It definitely snuck up on us. My blood instantly ran cold. I went stone sober, my heart frozen in pure and utter fright, true and pure fear. I could feel whatever it was breath on my neck. I could hear its breath as I froze in my position. She leaned up, very slowly looking over my shoulder, and I could see the reflection in her eyes of the beast. Blood-curdling scream came next as we both ran for the doors of her car. I was driving and in full reverse with her beside me on the passenger seat. We raced to an intersection, flipped the car around back to Toma we went, with dirt and gravel flying and the rubber burning. She was begging me not to drop her off at home. She was beyond frightened to death. If our hair would have turned white, it would not have been a shock to me, as I was equally frightened with her over the whole encounter as well. We went back to my truck until daybreak and awoke in each other's arms. I will never forget that night, nor the beast that hunts the countryside. A short term later, I ran across an article called The Beast of Bray Road. Strange stories, legends, folklore of werewolves or dogmen. I can honestly say I will not go on the countryside at night to this day. It scares the hell out of me. There's something out there, and it's no house cat. I only have a fear of God and what I survived with that deadly nightmare. I'm a strong man, God-fearing, growing up in the North Florida woods and swamps, hunting and such. It was no normal animal, but something else. Deep in my heart and soul, I believe we were lucky and survived an attack from a werewolf. I'm not a coward, and I'm not scared to say that the legend is true. Watch your back in the North Woods. Don't ever trust the dark around you. P.S. It's all fun and games until it happens to you. I don't laugh at people's stories now because this was mine. My heart goes out to the missing and the disappeared ones and their families. You're not alone. Signed, Sean. Translucent Entity Encounter. Good day. My name is Christina. I have an experience with a translucent entity that I would like to share with you. My main concern is seeking answers to what exactly I've witnessed while at Lake Giacomo on 2 separate occasions, the second one being dark energies or black/gray orbs. The first incident was right around 4 years ago. I know this because the other day I found the citation I'd received on my car for being at the lake past closing time, which is sunset. Finding it brought the feelings I had experienced that night and for several months, even years afterwards, back to me. These feelings consist of a deep need to know, almost to the point of obsession, what I saw and other people have seen as well. I need answers. So let me explain. Myself and my boyfriend were at the lake, Lake Giacomo, sometime in April 2017. I could tell you the exact date if I had the citation in front of me, but it's put away. Anyway, he and I love to be out in nature, digging up plants to plant in the yard or picking flowers or just being out in nature. We also collect things like rocks, interesting ones, crystals, also driftwood, and my favorite, arrowheads, things like that. We also collect old bottles, and you can find most of these things there. So it was probably around 6 p.m. on that spring night when we arrive at the lake. The sun doesn't set until 7:30 or 8. That's when they lock the gates, and it's posted. Thinking about it, it's funny because they only lock down part of the lake. The rest of the lake you can go to all night long, anytime. Anyway, so we mess around, find a snake and video it. Then I go my own way looking for something cool to add to our collection. And my boyfriend stays up on a rock cliff face, and I venture down into the area below where he is and go around the corner. We're probably 50 feet apart, but I can't see him and he can't see me. He told me that he heard a splash in the water just a good 10 minutes after I went down to where I was, which I wasn't even near the water, and he thought maybe it was me messing with him, but I know it wasn't. And he thought he felt a presence or something. Maybe he saw movements out of his peripherals, which he also then again thought it was me, and he looked and didn't see anything, so then his mind started wandering, thinking that I was somehow doing some sort of magic or something and messing with his head, which isn't something I would do, because I'm not a practitioner of witchcraft at all. So he says he hollers for me, calls my name several times, and I didn't hear him, not one time. I didn't hear anything. And so eventually he comes down and finds me. At this point, it's after dark, and so we walked over toward my car to leave. Before we go, though, he decides to go down to the water to do whatever it was he wanted to do. That's when I found the citation on my car for being there after curfew, which I just found again the other day, and it reminded me of this whole thing all over. My car is parked roughly 45 feet down off the road. The road is on a curve with a guardrail. I'm also parked about 35 feet from the water where he is. I'm standing by my car when I hear what I assume is someone walking up on the road. It definitely sounded bipedal, footsteps crunching leaves. I mean, clearly, I can hear the leaves and little twigs breaking, so it's obvious to me that somebody was up there and wanted me to know it. They weren't trying to be stealthy. But when I look up there, at first, I didn't see anything. As I'm watching and listening and hearing, I begin to make out like a shimmery, see-through, moving thing. To me, it looked like water moving, like on the movie The Abyss, and that water that comes out of the water and is moving like that, in a different shape, not any tubular water funnel. It was like a body or a mass of water walking. And when I say walking, I mean I could see its movements, and it was seemingly moving forward in a walking fashion, and it was crunching the leaves as it did, so telling me that it had mass and some weight behind it, even though it was practically invisible. By practically invisible, I mean I could see it, but it was definitely clear and see-through. If it wasn't moving, I might not have seen it. In what seemed to me to feel like almost a state of shock, like my mind was denying what I'm looking at, trying to make sense of it, there was nothing I could compare it to that I've ever witnessed before, besides on the movies. I could see through it, and I had to really focus, and I'm like, am I really seeing this? Is something walking up there? I could see it moving. Like you can tell when something's moving. And it's just enough light behind it coming from the streetlight that I could see it shimmer as it moved. And I'm sure no more than a minute or two goes by, and my mind still isn't sure what I'm looking at, and is still in denial. It seemed to be about 10 to 12 feet tall, I swear, but I'm not the best judge of those things. So I kept looking, trying to figure out what it is I'm looking at, and I'm hearing it, and it's definitely walking. I could totally hear it and see something, and I'm about 45 to 50 feet down from where it is. It wasn't trying to be quiet, so it wanted me to know it was there. So my boyfriend comes toward me and I say, "Hey, babe, I think there's somebody up there. Why don't you check it out?" My boyfriend is bold and pretty much fearless, and I know he can handle himself. And at that time, I didn't feel there was any danger, or I wouldn't have sent him up there. So he walks up there. I didn't tell him what I was thinking or what I saw either, because I wasn't sure at that point, and I didn't want him to think I was crazy. And I also needed some personal confirmation that I'm not crazy. So he goes up there and checks it out, goes back down, and I ask, "Was there somebody up there?" He's like, "There was something up there." And my stomach just drops. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm really not crazy. And you saw it too." And he's like, "Yeah, I did." I said, "What was it?" He said, "I don't know exactly." And it just stepped over the guardrail and was gone. At that point, I'm like, "Okay, let's go." We get into the car and we leave. That's when I start getting really freaked out for some reason. I don't know why, but I became overwhelmingly scared right then because I didn't know what it was, and he confirmed what I thought I saw. I really saw, and I felt like there was no denying it. I really did see it, and it scared me. There was something invisible walking and watching us, and clearly it wanted us to know it was there.
Steve Stockton tells Untold missing person mysteries. Always epic and awesome and suspenseful as Steve Stockton reads these stories, and he could probably read your 6th grade report card and make it seem compelling. So glad that he's a part of the After Hours radio show. We will always have Steve Stockton on every single week. Let's see here as we go ahead and jump into the next part of the show, which you know is the After Hours wrap up with your guy, Drew Becky.
Come here, I'm gonna eat you! Get in my belly!
The After Hours wrap up with our guy, Drew Becky. in the building, sir. Thanks for coming on in. Good to see you, my friend. And how have things been?
Traveling, man. Just been traveling. I got back this morning, so last night at about 2:30 a.m. From my travels to Vegas and back. And yeah, it was fast trip. Great interview. Got to hang out with a buddy that I was deployed with. First time I seen him since 2007. Last time I seen him was actually in Iraq. So yeah, hanging out with him, and it was great. It was great seeing him, and interview went great. Can't wait for the drop on that. But we talked about aliens, ET, dinosaurs, dragons, drones, psychedelics, source, and everything in between.
Oh yeah. Can't wait for that show. Can't wait for that one. And I know you'll keep us posted. You'll let us know when that's going to air so we can all tune in.
Show.
Yeah. Drew, you were here last time we had Reed Summers in.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, just epic and awesome as always, right? Just the perspective, right? Love it.
And not to mention the vocabulary. Some of those words I had to Google, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
I wrote down
was
a
like,
couple.
whoa, like what do you call my mama? And then I had to Google it, and be like, okay. I had to check and see what it was. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, he had a couple words I had to write down. I'm like, oh, you pulled that one out the bag.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's a good. Yeah, he's good vocabulary, great, brilliant man, and definitely agree on some of the things he's talking about. The 2027 thing, I've been hearing that come up a lot. The USOs in the ocean, obviously, and the individual contact are a few things that stuck out. What he was talking about really interests me, and definitely the 2027, because that's been coming up over and over and over again. By the way, how was your New Year's, man? Like, back up.
Rewind. Okay. No, my New Year's was awesome, man. I really appreciate you asking that. I was just looking forward to getting back into the saddle, man, and knowing that we're gonna have Reed on and just in the time. I was really excited to get back to the show. Other than that, I did pop in for an impromptu show. I just did one at the last minute here on Spaced Out Radio and on my channel. I aired on both channels where we did the countdown for the West Coast, right? So we did that. Then the Grantavius Max did come on in, and we talked for a couple hours. Dave, well, I'm not going to say Dave Scott. It was El Ovni Volador and El Phantasmo ended up showing up on the show and just being some real a-holes and butt heads. How they get down pretty much. Other than that, yeah, new year, new time to focus on some new stuff. And we're kicking the year off with drones. Even though people were so sick and tired of hearing it, we are literally still starting the year off with that situation still going on.
We gotta have some answers for it, man. What the main one of the main questions I brought up in this interview that I just did yesterday? Yesterday in Vegas. One of the main questions I brought up about the drones. We're about to elect a new president in about 2 weeks. Like, if there's drones flying over that inauguration, what happens then? Are we finally gonna like interact? Or is two F-16s finally gonna get scrambled and go up and interact with them? Like, how they've been over military sites, they've been over airports, they've definitely been over private residential areas. Flying low within 5,000 feet or less of the deck, a lot of them. But the big question is, what happens if they start flying over one of the most prominent events in our, that happens every 4 years, swearing in a new president. What happens then? Like, is someone gonna come out and tell us what they are? Like, come on, man. Like,
that's the biggest
please,
thing, dude. That's the
please.
biggest, and that'll be the measuring stick, right? Because once we do have the new president come in and take office, if this is just still going on without answers, I know he's talked enough to say that he'll get down to it. And so I'm hoping that he does kind of grab the bull by the horns, because yes, we do need an answer, and no, we still haven't gotten an answer. And truthfully, there is, if, not to jump out on a ledge, but it feels like there's probably only one answer, and it's the answer that they don't want to give because for obvious reasons. Now, if you were to believe historically what presidents are told when they come into office and what they can and can't do, what they can and can't say, then you would assume, if history is a measuring stick, that once, even though we do get a new president, that it's still going to be more of the same. Like we just can't tell you, because if there, what is left? What is left? We've been on this. What is it? It started November 18th over Picatinny, New Jersey. That's almost 2 months. We're closing in on 2 months of whatever these things are, doing what they're doing, and no answers.
There's a whole another twist of this that I haven't heard anyone talk about, like, and only myself. Maybe other people, maybe it's out there. I don't spend a whole bunch of time just browsing for stuff. I see it as it pops up. But is there any connection between these drones and the bombing at Trump Hotel, the stuff that happened in New Orleans, the mass shooting in Europe, and whatever else has been going on? It seems like ever since the 1st or 31st or 1st, there's been a couple terror attacks, what they're considering terror attacks a day. Man, right before I flew out to Vegas, the day before I flew out to Vegas, that bomb went off. I had thought about canceling the trip, like straight up.
Drew, it's definitely scary, man. And I was shocked that, first just seeing.
You think there might be a connection? You think there might be a connection between the drones and the attacks?
I'm not gonna say that. I don't think so. Here's what I saw. It was just strange that when the report initially happened that it was done right in front of Trump Tower, and it was done in Elon Musk's Cybertruck. So it's Elon Musk and it's Trump. It's definitely some symbolism there, but the symbolism, I think, was more from just the person's personal perspective, like you wanted to make a statement, and what better way to do it than to pull up in Elon Musk's Cybertruck and do this in front of Trump Tower. However, he if you read his little manifesto, his little email, if it's legit, which we can't verify or vet, but he talks about the government keeping secrets about anti-gravitics. Actually, I have the email that I can read here as we go to break. We'll maybe read it on break or after break, either way, because we got about 30 seconds left, or a minute left. But before we go to break, how was your New Year's, sir?
Great, man. I was in bed by about 8:30. I woke up about 2:00 in the morning, used the bathroom. The wife asked me before we all fell asleep. She's like, "Hey, wake me up first thing when you wake up, give me a kiss." We know it ain't gotta be at midnight. we got 2 toddlers. I'm about to be 45. It just ain't in the cards. That just staying up till midnight thing ain't in the cards, unless I absolutely have to if I'm driving or something. But yeah, if I'm home, I'm in bed before 9 o'clock. So I was in bed by about 8:30. Yeah, woke up and had made a nice breakfast in the morning for the first, and just kind of relaxed. And I did put a new screen door outside.
All right, we'll talk more about the screen door here as we get ready to go to break on the After Hours radio show with the After Hours wrap up with Drew Banky, guys. We'll be right back right after this commercial break. All right, clear. And I want to bring up, so I do want to kind of talk about that because that crossed my mind, man. But, and I'll read the email. I guess I can. Should I read it now or save it? I'll save it. But there were other things that happened, which we'll talk about in detail after the break as well, where there were the plane crashes, as Miss Catherine Jones pointed out. I just actually was showing my girl that yesterday, and just pointing out to her that it's just strange. It doesn't have to be related. It's just very odd that after a period of no plane crashes that we know of, we have 3 consecutive crashes, and 2 of them are pretty huge as far as the amount of people that were involved in it. 2 jumbo jets. So I thought that was weird, but we can get into talking about that. It's just that when things like that, conspiracy theories can grow out of something like this, even with the Trump thing, the Trump Tower. That could grow in, and I don't want to facilitate any new conspiracy theories, but I will talk about how weird that was. And
I got some juicy facts that just popped right before today. Like, I got some juicy facts that involve Sean Ryan, man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Talk about that, please. Well, when we come back, because I did see that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Mind blowing. Now we can go down that rabbit hole. We'll do that. But I do want to.
I got something else that ties into about Sean Ryan that nobody knows about. That I drop on him.
I thought about you when I saw that. When I was watching that, I'm like, Drew. I know Drew. I can't wait to talk to Drew about this because I know Drew's gonna have something to say about this. And you do, which is great. Because that's what
I certainly do. I certainly do, man. No, but I met Caroline Corey yesterday. She was going on to Sean Kelly's show right after me. So we stopped and talked for a little bit, and we're gonna get together and connect. So that was cool.
Yeah. We need tell her come on the show. Tell her we need her on the show, man.
Yeah, that's that's in the plans for sure. But I want to do it because she's deep into Source, you know. So I want to do like a film project about Source, like, you know.
Yeah. And I, I wanted to talk to her about Tearing the Sky. I really wanted to talk to her in that moment when it was happening because I think it was so impactful, but it is still impactful because I think that film documents it. A lot of people slept on it, but it didn't seem like it had this climax to it. But I can point to a lot of different things in there that I think when look back on later, it's going to be like, oh, that was it right there. She captured it right there.
Yeah.
That portal or whatever that was, where all those things were in there. That's what I feel like my objects were, or those same objects, or the same ones that were flying, over the Pacific. And that was obviously Catalina Island, so it's like 140 miles from here. So yeah, she seems like a cool person for sure.
Yeah, it was good. Everything was really good. Meeting her was cool. We ran over. It was an hour and 20 minutes. He invited me back, so we're gonna run it back again, run down some more rabbit holes, and he doesn't do that with a whole lot of people. So it was good, man. We talked about it's gonna be a great episode. I think there's a very good possibility there might be some viral clips in it that come out of that, if not the whole episode.
I definitely want to see it.
Yeah, it was really good. He even texted me afterwards. He's like, "That's a really great episode." And I was like, "How long is it gonna be before it drop?" He's like, "About 2 months." I was like, "Nah, man, 2 months? Come on."
Yeah.
But it'll fly by.
Who's Rex Bear? Lavera? I've never heard of Rex Bear. Have you heard of Rex Bear? Do you know who Rex Bear is?
Rawr. No.
I'll have to write that down. Apparently, you just did fade to black. Always looking for new people to talk to all the time.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, we got about 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's crazy, Sean Ryan, man.
We'll go on this for about the next 12-ish minutes, and then I gotta jump into some news after that. So we're gonna hit this pretty hard, jump right into the email, and then I guess Sean Ryan first because the email came afterwards, right? Here we go.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio, the After Hours Radio Show, and the After Hours Wrap Up with Drew Banky joining us here. Awesome stuff. This has been an epic show. If you missed any of it, you already know. Hop in the archive, youtube.com/@spacedoutradio, where you can get up to speed on what it was that you missed. We're going to go ahead and jump into some more conversation, as a moment ago we were talking about just the things that have been happening lately. You had the bombing over there at the Trump Tower in Las Vegas, in a Cybertruck of all vehicles, and kind of the guy being tied to, his email or a note that he had written. He talks a lot about the drones, but he actually makes a point that he says that he thinks the drones are Chinese anti-gravitic drones. Is what essentially he was saying. So you heard something about that? You want to talk about that?
Yeah, he was actually SF. He actually is or was, because there's some reports that he may be still alive. I don't know. There's all types of reports around it, but facts are he was a special forces soldier with 10th group, which is a Green Beret group within the Army. He was active duty. He was on leave. He was from Colorado Springs, and there's video of him right at a Tesla charging station. I was just in Vegas. I just got back from Vegas last night. So, and my buddy that was driving me around happened to be we have me drive around in his Tesla. So we had to go to a charging station. So I actually got to see the camera setups and everything. So anyways, there's cameras that show him right before the bombing. I drove past and seen Trump the hotel. I didn't get close to it and everything, so I can't really say if there was, any tape up or any police presence there anymore, anything like that. But some developments that happened today. So earlier today, I was conversing with one of the producers, producer over at Sean Ryan's show, in a back channel, just me and him. And he expressed to me that I wasn't a right fit for Sean Ryan's show. And so I was like, okay. So I move on and back away, which that's kind of that was weird for me, because it seems like I check all the boxes for the Sean Ryan show. Ex-police officer, former, 2 tours of Iraq combat vet, psychedelics, talking about UFOs, consciousness, stories about Jesus. It was just weird for me. And then a couple hours after that, we find there's Sean Ryan makes a post that he is going into recluse for a few days, and when he comes back, he's going to release some really crazy information. And then just a few hours after that, some things started getting released, screenshots of messages that the bomber had sent Sean Ryan, that he wanted to come on the show and be a whistleblower for some things that was going on within 10th group, Army Special Operations inside the American border. So what else did you find?
Well, I want to rewind real quick and find out who in the hell said you were that you were to fit the Sean Ryan again. I missed that piece. Who said that?
That's Jeremy, his producer.
How would does Jeremy know? What does Jeremy know? Drew Banky's a fit for anything that he wants to manifest. So we're gonna, and we'll leave that there. What do you say, Steve Stone Cold Steve Austin? And that's the bottom line.
Yeah, it was, but it was just weird. So, and there's people saying, you know, Sean might be a disinformation agent. I don't know. Like, I'm not going anything like that. All I'm saying is the Sean Ryan show over the past couple months seems like they have shifted their focus, and you know they're talking a lot about terrorist threats and bombing threats, things like that, and military intelligence. When it started off being about veterans and veterans sharing their stories and healing and stuff like that, and consciousness, and he's just kind of getting away from that. So I don't know what's going on. I don't, all due respect to all of them over there. Like, I still go on the show and all that in the future, but I don't know what's,
you have
there's a lot of craziness going on over there right now.
There's agents and managers that kind of talk on behalf. It never gets to the actual person. And now I think there's some of that going on, because I think if Sean Ryan sat and talked to you, he'd love to speak to you. So I just know that to be fact. But yeah, getting into that, I mean, I did hear the part where I guess the gentleman that Sean Ryan was interviewing. I actually wrote his name down if I can bring it up here. Let me actually bring that up. He was interviewing something. I wrote it down here. Okay, I don't have it, but he was interviewing someone who stated that this same person reached out to him. That's how it all came up. Is he's like, he had reached out to me, and I'm kind of shooken up about it because I didn't know what to do about it, because then all of a sudden here he is, he's doing this. And he said, he basically said that, he was trying to get the Fox News and all these places to kind of talk about this thing.
I did see that.
And then Sean Ryan, he said, you should check your emails and see, because he may have contacted you too. And then Sean Ryan goes and checks his stuff and was like, yeah, he did. He actually reached out to us and said, now I do have a copy of the email here. And I'm not sure who this was to, because it redacted who it was actually sent to. But this is from Matt Leibelsberger, the person who blew himself up, I guess, any best way to put it. He said, in case I do not make it to this is December 31st of 2024 at 10:42 in the morning. Says, in case I do not make it to my decision point or on to the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until January 1st or 1 January, and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. He said, my first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. Then he goes on to say, what we have been seeing with, quote, drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China in the East Coast, but throughout history, the U.S. only we in China have this capability. Our open location for this activity in the box is below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they use the balloon, which are also part of the integrated comm systems. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned AC aircraft. They are most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted to. It's checkmate. The USG and United States government needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them, and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland or FBI, and they are looking to move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico, but won't. Let's see, but won't because they know I am armed and I have a massive BIED. I'm not sure what that's an acronym for. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me. I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in some province in Afghanistan in 2009 by the administration, the Department of Defense, the DEA, and the CIA. I conducted targeting for these strikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of CIVCAS, whatever that stands for, that killed hundreds of civilians in a single day. USFORA continued strikes after spotting civilians on initial ISR. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft in CENTCOM. The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear. I was part of that cover-up. The US FORA, an agent of the DEA, so I don't know if my abduction attempts are related to either. I worked with General Miller's IO staff on this as well as the response to Bala Murga. AOBS commander at the time can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war, because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. For vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berger, Matthew Leibelsberger, an active duty 18Z out of 110. My profile is public. I have an active TSSC USAP access, United, or what do you say, special access program access.
Special access program. That the VBIED, that's vehicle borne improvised explosive device. So that's the bomb in his vehicle. So he's talking about he's protecting himself with the VBID.
So that can go down so many conspiratorial paths, because the China situation, the gravitic crap, I think we can point to. I mean, but we can't say for certain, obviously. But I think there's enough there to say that they probably don't possess that sort of technology. I truthfully don't even think we possess that sort of technology, as I talked to the guest tonight about. It's just, within 120 years of manned flight, just doesn't seem like we would be able to reverse engineer that within that short time period. It just, I just don't know. I just don't know if we could.
I don't know. Going from getting to the point of being able to fly, getting to the point of being able to fly took us a long time. But in retrospect, in the grand scheme of things, it didn't take any time, but since then, I don't know. I think we speed up, as we go on, we learn things faster and faster over time. So, and, they always talk about the technology that's out there lots of times that's not even told to us is 20, 50, maybe even 100 years ahead of what they're letting us know about. So there's that side of it too.
But even when they make that statement, that the technologies that they work on are 20, 50, 100 years ahead, we've only been doing this for about 100 years. So how many cycles have we gone through to be able to say with the fact that the things that we're working on are 50 to 100 years advanced? I think once again, that ends up being speculation, because when we go back only 120 years ago, we flew for the first time, period. And it was only for like 3 seconds or 12 seconds, something along those
I
lines.
mean, look back at the Osama bin Laden raid. You know, that come out of the helicopters that could fly under radar, that were actually housed at Area 51, tested at Area 51. Like, we wouldn't have known about those if it wasn't for that crash. Like, how
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And that was 10, 15, 20 years ahead of time right there. So we're just
but-
talking about one instance that by accident we found out about it because of the crash site. And then parts some weird parts of that helicopter was recovered by locals. It made the news, and cat's out of the bag. But if that helicopter would have crashed, we might not know about that technology to this day.
But it flew like a normal helicopter. I mean, it flew using basic means of propulsion, though. I mean, when we talk about something as groundbreaking and next level as anti-gravitics, there's no example of anything remotely close. There's no stair step from what we know as propulsion to anti-gravitics. Where's that middle ground? Where's the?
But what it,
so
I
you
mean,
just jump from this to that.
if we recovered craft at Roswell, you know, and the other craft that was not at Roswell, that was about 100 miles away, that they recovered, where Obi-Wan, the first biological, come from. If all that's true, we're talking 1940 of having actual craft that we have in our possession. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
Just like
I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying, like, these are things that we talk about and we need to think about. Like, when we're talking about this, we can't just say, we can't. There's no way we can make that. There is several reasons how, and evidence of how we could.
And I gotta see that evidence. There just isn't. I mean, people say they've seen or heard things behind the scenes, but the thing we know for a fact is that extraterrestrials are visiting, and they're here in advanced craft. So when we look in the sky and we see something that is advanced, is the likelihood that advanced thing belongs to the civilization that's a million years ahead of us that came here in an advanced craft? Or is it more likely that us as the humans who have been sitting here for the last 120 years of manned flight, we have on our own just developed this on our own? Like, what is the likelihood of either, when we know that you're looking at either this or either that, it's more likely that if we're seeing something, it belongs to the guys that came here in the advanced craft versus the human beings who were just flying with the Wright brothers in 1903 for 12 seconds. I would think common sense would say it's probably the advanced people that are flying this tech versus the human beings. I know we like to think highly of ourselves and think that we're so smart and we can just figure everything out. But I don't think we have anything out there that we could point to that says that we did that. And I think that's where the problem keeps coming in. You can speculate. You can say we built, a time machine. If we never see it, then we don't see anything that kind of points to it or any technology that would lead up to that being a possibility, then it's just speculation, versus
Right,
these things that we're.
But you're saying that we can't develop in 120 years, but you're not throwing into the fact that under congressional hearings, it's been admitted that we have craft and we have biological beings in our possession since 1940s or before.
Right.
So I mean, that's a big egg that you have to crack and put into the pan when you're talking about, is it can we come up with a technology that has anti-gravitic properties? I believe the answer is yes, especially if we're going with the assumption and the presumed fact that we have recovered craft from Roswell.
Or are you a Bob Lazar believer? Do you believe Bob Lazar's story?
Some of it. I mean, what are you talking about in particular?
As far as working on these craft, Area 51.
I believe it. I totally believe it. Yeah.
So
I believe
Bob,
he was there. I believe he was working on them.
Bob Lazar's opinion in 2016, 7 years ago, was that we haven't cracked that. We haven't cracked it. That they keep bringing this technology out every 10 years. This was his thought process, that he thinks that they bring this out every 10 years, throws it at a group of people to see if they could figure it out. But in 2016, he says he doesn't believe that we have. And then you have, so if you believe Bob Lazar, you'd have to believe that statement there, which would make sense if he actually was there working on the stuff and he couldn't figure it out. The people there couldn't do it. That was just in 1989, only 30, 40 years ago. So James Lukatsky as well, just a year or two ago, states that they just breached the hull of one of these craft. They're doing stuff like that. These are the basic levels of trying to start to figure the stuff out. So there's more evidence that says that we haven't figured it out based on people that we believe have been in contact with this stuff, that says that we have figured it out. There actually isn't anything that we can point to that says that we figured it out. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying is. That's all. If you want to add to that,
it's I'm not in either camp, man. I'm here for a discussion. I'm just saying these things need to be talked about in the same sentence if we're talking about, if we can figure out anti-gravitic properties or crafts or anything here on this planet. I don't know. There's a lot of drones out there that don't seem like they're from off planet, and I haven't seen anything personally, and I haven't seen any super compelling video that says, okay, that's definitely an alien craft, So that's a quandrum I'm in as well, as long I'm right alongside everybody else.
I think there's definitely I think what we saw or what we're seeing still probably right now is a little bit of both, because there are definitely images of physical craft, whatever they are, likely drones, but then there are balls of plasma that people are filming as well, and like the 40-foot by 40-foot thing that the guy filmed as well, which didn't have any sort of physicality to it. It just seemed like a light. And
I have witnessed this myself, where you can zoom in on certain. What's that?
10 seconds.
You can zoom in on certain planets, and they have similar properties, man. Depending on where they're at in the sky and the depth of your zoom.
All right. Well, the conversation continues as we look back, and we thank our guest tonight, Reed Summers, for another awesome conversation. Hopefully many more to come in the future. We also thank Steve Stockton with the Tales Untold Missing Person Mysteries. Every single week we got Steve Stockton, and we got Drew Banky with the After Hours wrap up. And we also want to thank the man that you hear right there, Ron Bumblefoot Call. He's the man that rocks us out each and every weekend, as he teaches us and tells us to never say never again, because yes, the phenomenon is real. And because of that, anything and everything is possible. So if you love the show tonight, make sure you show your support, throw your horns up as well. Also, we want to thank our listeners, both here and on terrestrial radio and digital platforms from whenever and wherever in the world you may be listening from. We do appreciate you tuning your frequency to Spaced Out Radio, where we do what we do best. What's that, you ask? We
own the night.
This show is copyright SOR Media Ventures Limited. Is Spaced Out Radio. It has been a pleasure once again serving you as your host. I'm Mr. Rob G. This is Drew Banky. This is the After Hours radio show on Spaced Out Radio. And to all you space travelers out there, this is not a goodbye nor a farewell. However, as we wrap up the show and go off air for tonight, you can best believe we will see you again. Same time, same channel, right here, right back here. Much love, guys. Take care. Clear. Awesome stuff. Awesome show.
Boom.
Man, great stuff. God, we're gonna do it again. And I don't know if anybody can tell, but I was sick through this whole dang show, man.
I could tell, man.
Man, I got this I think strep throat, dude. Like when you swallow and your tonsils and it hurts back of my tongue, and I'm just like, oh dude, I'm miserable. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, no, I could hear it for sure. I was gonna message something, but I was like, he already knows he's sick. Like, I ain't gotta say anything.
And I'm like, dude, but it was Reed. I had to make sure that it was gonna be awesome. But
yeah,
if this persists tomorrow, then we may have to call it in. Joe Monk, Rob does not. Okay, he says he Rob. So I love.
Oh,
look at this guy.
Shots fired.
Yeah. Wait, where mods? Okay, he's a mod, so I can't have the mods mod the mod. So
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Dude,
But
I did massive shout outs in this interview to Spaced Out Radio, though, right
That's
at the end of it. They're like, where can you find you? Dude, I mentioned Spaced Out Radio a few times, so
that's what's up, man. That's love, man. That is love. And we love it, man. Can't wait to see you on it, man. It's another step.
It's gonna be a good one. I mean, it is a good one. It's gonna be fire, man. For anyone that is not following me on the socials yet, go over and check out my socials. I've been posting pictures and of me backstage and stuff. And yeah, man, it's gonna be a great show. It's gonna be a great episode.
And to that.
And we just crossed 27,000. I saw that on YouTube, dog.
Lovely. It's lovely, man. That was the goal that they set for the end of the year. We hit it right on the last show of the year. So it was awesome. But I do want to say, man, you can do whatever you put your mind to, man. Forget whoever that person is. It just upsets me, man, because there's a thing that I always say is like, if you shoot for the moon, then the worst that can happen is you'll touch the sky. If you shoot for the moon, the worst that'll happen is you'll touch the sky. And if anybody tells you that you can't do something, you turn around and you ask them why. Ask them why. And I'm going to leave you guys with that, man. Awesome show tonight.
It's funny because I did. He messaged me and said I wouldn't be a good fit. I said, okay, I take that. You're the producer. Can you let me know what box I'm not checking for Sean Ryan show? And he replies back with stop. So I give him a thumbs up. So I was like, okay, dude, like you're gonna come and ask me to be on the show. And I'm gonna laugh when you do, man.
Well, you just make sure you write that person's name down, because you might find out that person doesn't work for Sean Ryan anymore 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Don't get me started, man. Don't get me started, man.
Yeah.
I'll mess around and said something wrong about it. Got some beef started out here in the industry. Yeah. And I don't even want to do that, man.
Sean, is right under Joe as the biggest podcast in the world. Like, I respect that. That's why I'm shooting for him. But it's also because I believe I would vibe with them. Like, there's so many things that we could talk about, so many roads we could go down. I know this dude, like, if he would just get the chance to know me for a minute, he would see that I'd be a perfect on the show. But there's some stuff going on there that we don't know about. Like, that there's some stuff that's about to come out in the next few days, and I just pray for everybody in these times. It's crazy times, and I think Sean's getting wrapped up in some deep stuff. And I'm just praying for everything. So
we may look at this in 2 weeks and be like, oh,
yeah,
that's why.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe, man. But with that being said, man, we're gonna go ahead and get ready to close this thing down. I'm gonna go ahead and get to bed, get some rest, and hopefully feel better tomorrow so we can do a show. If not, I'm gonna mail one in, guys, and we'll make sure that you guys have something awesome to watch. So we'll see how it works out. Outside of that, you got anything you want to leave the audience with tonight, Drew Banky?
No, let's. I feel great about 2025, man. Happy New Year. I'm glad to be back. for the new year, and let's do this, man.
All right. Awesome stuff. Definitely appreciate you guys for coming on in and enjoying the show. Glad we could do it. Shout out again to our guests for tonight and everyone involved. And you guys have a great rest of your night. And we're going to rock them out of here as I go ahead and drive on home and lay it on down for the night. We want retribution, guys, and this is how we're going to get up out of here. See you next time.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with the